Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin, Buchanan.
Make a mistake. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be a great program, and we're building it into a great program.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I stand by what we do and how we do it.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So we're going to try a different approach today, at least for the go hour. We're going to try. I'm putting a rule on the show. Texters, callers, we're going to be positive for the hour. Only happy thoughts, right? So if you don't have any happy thoughts, don't express them. We're only going to talk good. We're going to try as long as we can go, OB. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Go Hour, and it's a glorious Go Hour here on Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023. It is presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. I'm David Nuño, and it is a happy day, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it is a happy day. Any day, every day could be a good day, but you're all positive.
All positive, no breaks. Yeah.
Mandate. Reminds me of a friend of mine who's a reporter up in Waco, Jerry Hill.
Okay, I remember Jerry, yeah.
Yeah, you know Jerry?
Yeah.
And one time, I think this might have been when maybe Guy Morris or Kevin Steele or somebody was the head coach, and Baylor was just god-awful. And one of the assistant coach chided him for always being negative. You're always negative. You never look for anything positive. You know, they were like 1-11, right? And just by chance, Jerry had nothing to do with it because, you know, the writers don't write the headlines.
Right.
After they lost yet again that Saturday, the headline in the Waco Tribune the next day said, positively awful. And the same coach pulled Jerry aside, asked him to step into another room. Jerry's like, "What?
What I do?"
Jerry's not the biggest guy, right?
Right.
Yeah. What is this guy gonna like punch me or whatever? And the guy said, "You got me, didn't he?"
Oh, that's good.
So there's one way to be positive.
Hey, look, you know, like your parents probably taught you out there that, like, you know, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Right? On social media, if we tried a positive day on social media, instead of vile, mean comments to people, you suck, bro. Instead, it was like, you know what? It's a good shirt, man. Nice quality shirt you're wearing.
Yeah, and I like that shirt.
It's a good shirt.
TexAgs.
And I like
TexAgs
your shirt,
logo.
OB.
I got the TexAgs logo, too.
So if we're going to be positive, by the way, it's Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of the morning by going to texags.com/coffee. If you want a free thing of TexAgs Coffee, what you got to do? You got to text us on the hotline, 979-693-1150. And what number are we going with today?
Number 2.
4?
Okay, number 4.
No, 4, like, as in Y2.
Actually, maybe we should go 3 for the,
split the middle?
The quarterbacks that we may be down to number 3 quarterback.
We may be down to number 3. So the third texter to say TexAgs or TexAgs Coffee or Beat the Hell Out of the Morning, either one will take. You'll get yourself a free coffee here, courtesy of our friends at TexAgs, our own company. All right, Olin.
Yes.
Happy thoughts. So
I'm happy.
Or just positive, right?
I'm positive.
I am positive that the offensive line did a better job in the second half. How sustainable is one half when we have an entire season of not so good?
Yeah, I would have to. Is it sustainable? Anybody can have a good half, a good game, but good teams are consistently good, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you have to take it's sustainable, but can these guys sustain it? I don't know. I think you have to take a wait-and-see attitude toward that. But I think that was some, obviously positive. You know what I'm not sure about? And you tell me, whose defense is better, Ole Miss or Mississippi State's?
I think the numbers would say Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
But I think
But you know what? Like Mississippi State.
they don't. If they had an offense, I'd say Mississippi State's is better.
No, I said, but to help them out,
Yeah, to not keep them on the field all game long.
Mississippi State might have even played a more challenging schedule, maybe.
Yeah.
Up till date. Now, that changes this week when Ole Miss plays Georgia.
Uh-huh.
But, Mississippi State beat Arizona in week 2, and all of a sudden Arizona might win 9 games.
I remember when they beat them, we're like, I don't know. That was a good, it was a close game. Look, I think this is going to be a tougher match than it should
They
be.
got the 2 leading tacklers in the SEC, or linebackers for Mississippi State.
That's right. This was a game that I think before the season started, before we knew Mississippi State was going to be bad, I thought this was a win. This is a game that a week ago I would have said, inferior team taking on Texas A&M, win, right? Because we know that we struggle with teams that are good, like to close them out. But with the questions at running back, because we don't know about Le'Veon Moss,
Okay.
there's been games that he hasn't played. Questions at quarterback, right? And there are questions at quarterback. The offense has already been somewhat hamstrung. That figured something out in the second half against Mississippi State. I don't know what to expect. Now, I can expect the front, we're talking about being positive. I can expect the defensive front to get after whoever's at quarterback. If it's Will Rogers, which if he can go, he's going to go. If he can go, and they've been saying that the last 2 weeks, and he hasn't gone. But if the defense takes care of business, can the offense do enough?
Well,
considering there's question marks.
If you were talking about all the questions, you didn't even mention the A&M quarterbacks.
We don't know what's going to happen with them.
But that's kind of odd because we don't know how will it affect Mississippi State. They've got a running quarterback right now, Mike Wright. But Will Rogers is a heck of a passer, but they're not letting him pass this year, right? Before he got hurt, they want to run and everything.
Right.
They're like completely doing away with what made them successful under Mike Leach. So if Will Rogers is back, does it matter? And they may go with the freshman. I think his name's like Chris. The Mavericks had a Parsons.
Chris Parsons.
Yeah, I was going to say the Mavericks had a guy with the same last name.
Chandler Parsons.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was, but it was that Parsons.
Yeah.
They may go with him, but
that guy got paid a lot of money not to do much.
Yeah. Apparently that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So
I'm positive that's a good thing for that person.
Yeah, I wish I'd had that deal. But anyway, but is that going to be an issue with if A&M doesn't have their starting corners again?
Even if they have their starting corners, there's been problems.
Yeah, back to your original question, I have to believe that even with a third-team quarterback, that A&M can beat Mississippi State. Now, they might have to beat them 10-7. Should I just assume that A&M's going to get a field goal off?
Yeah, we can get a field goal. We can get one if it's less than 47 yards. Yeah, I think we can get it off.
Okay. So, all right. So we're going to say they're going to get a field goal off and score. Maybe it'll be a defensive touchdown. Or maybe Jalen Henderson, if he's the starter, is going to come out and play great. And everybody's saying, "Where's this guy going to been all year?" And maybe having a quarterback that can run is the key.
So it is unfair of me to evaluate Jalen Henderson without ever seeing him play.
No, we can't. Well,
right?
Here's what we know. He hadn't thrown a collegiate pass in a game since, and it was a 5-yard completion, the last one he threw. That's what we know.
That's what we know. And we know that he is third on the depth chart behind a very talented Connor, very talented Max, and then Jalen.
I'd put Anias in the Wildcat.
I know.
I'd run that all day.
I know you would. I know you would. So another thing to be positive about. I'm positive Aggie basketball is going to be really good this year.
I agree wholeheartedly. like what I saw the other night.
Captain Obvious comment by me, but
you got to take in the caliber of competition. You know what? I'll tell you something else. You know who I think is going to be good?
Who?
I think the Texas A&M women's basketball team is going to be good.
Joni.
Now, I'm not saying that they're going to win the SEC. You know,
they're going to be much improved.
If you win the SEC, that means you're a national championship contender. I'm not going to put that on them.
Are you going to put like the vibe we have around volleyball right now? That kind of
yes,
yeah.
I think they're going to. I
too.
think Joni's team is going to be a legitimate contender to get into the NCAA tournament.
A legitimate contender. Let's go. Let's do it.
They may not get in it,
but they're going to be a contender.
But they're going to be talked about as a team to get in March.
I hope so. If you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can call us 979-693-1150 or text us 979-693-1150. If you do call us, we'll pick it up on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Good people could have a bad day. Call Brian Foley, 936-596-0407. They're serving the Woodlands, Houston, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. Remember, though, for the Go Hour, at least positive thoughts. Only good things. Don't say anything negative, all right? You don't have to say anything. It doesn't have to be totally positive, but it can't be negative. We go behind the glass to a guy who's always positive, Nick Savage. Good morning, Nick.
Howdy, good morning, y'all. Yeah, OB. What do you mean? What's that supposed to mean?
I was just curious.
I feel like I'm always pretty positive, but hey, I'm going to keep it positive like you said, David. I'm pretty confident even with what happened last Saturday. If you look at A&M's schedule, they've taken care of teams that have, been under 500 this season, especially in SEC play. So, I mean, I know the line is, 18.5, which it seems big. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they get close to covering that. I really don't think A&M will
even with the potential quarterback questions.
Yes, even with the potential quarterback. Everything that you just said, David, that doesn't take me off my stance. I really do think A&M will be able to handle. I feel like this game will be very similar to kind of like the South Carolina game, where it's just like, they did what they needed to do to win. I feel like that's what we're going to get on Saturday.
This is not a negative or a positive stat. This is just a stat. SEC teams that A&M has beat are combined 4-14 in SEC play. Remind me what Mississippi State's record is in SEC. They're 1-5. 1-5. So there's a chance to add to that right there. They will absolutely add to it. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Kennedy Cavan's in the house. Kennedy, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Whoa, sorry, my phone buzzed really loud.
That was a loud buzz.
I know, I'm sorry.
Talk
Nick's
to me.
going to be mad at me.
No, he's positive today. He's
happy.
Yeah,
sorry. I forget we're all being positive today. Well, we have some sarcastic positive
No.
text
You gotta read
messages.
it in a happy tone, my friend.
Okay. So Brandon in College Station said, I'm excited to see QB number 3. And I'm going to believe that he meant that.
Hey, to be very honest with you, I'm excited to see it too.
Yeah.
He ain't going anywhere. So
interesting.
let's see what he can do.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like Ohio State about 7 or 8 years ago when they got down to their third string quarterback and won the national championship.
They won a national championship. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. Since we're being positive.
We're being very positive. I mean, I don't think
Well,
there's
you remember
a
that
chance
guy's
to
name?
Not Carr. What was his name?
I can't recall.
Do you remember, Kennedy?
It started with
No.
a C, I think. Cardell
Jones.
Dwayne Haskins, is that who it was?
No, he was one of the guys that got hurt.
Oh, JT Barrett.
Cardell. No, he was
Cardell Jones.
Cardell Jones, I think.
Yeah.
Which was look. Here's the deal.
I was right. I looked it up.
If Jalen Henderson is starting, he wouldn't be here if he can't throw the ball to an open receiver, right?
Yep.
So get the ball to an open receiver. Hey, receivers, get open. Protecting, but if he can run, just run the football, play great defense. Now, to me, if it's an 18-point line, if A&M's going to cover that, that means probably they shut out Mississippi State or they gave up a field goal.
With that defense, it's very believable.
It's believable against that offense. The Mississippi State's offense has not been good.
But if Will Rogers does play, it does change. It doesn't change it significantly because that new offense that they put him in wasn't working when he was healthy. But we've seen what he has done to A&M a couple years in a row.
Yeah, he has ability. To me, the talking about Mississippi State, one of the head scratchers is that this coach took over with a senior quarterback who has been in this one system for 4 years and said, or however, and says, let's not do that.
That is coaching malpractice.
Yeah, it was stupid. It was Zach Arnett made a stupid decision,
and it's going to cost him his
now
job.
I can get it if he said, look, after this year we're going to go with, but I've got a quarterback who is flourished in a certain system, but I'm not good with that. So I'm going to take him out of that, and look what's happened to him offensively.
It's coaches not willing to change based on the talent that they have.
Yeah. It's like, what am I comfortable with, not what is my best player comfortable with.
Now, that being said, you should be able to, both need to be adaptable a little bit. Hey, if you want to play at the next level, we're going to need you to do X, Y, and Z, but we're going to keep it a hybrid system to keep you close to what you love doing.
You said next level. Did you hear? This is I'm hijacking things here.
Yeah.
Did you hear Jimbo the other day when he was talking about? He says, our job, we got to do this. We got to get them. We got to win. We got to get them ready for the next level.
Yep.
See, to me that's kind of a problem. Your job now to do your job, maybe you can argue to do my job, which is to win football games at Texas A&M.
You got to get your players to the next level.
Maybe,
to be that
but
kind of caliber
that's
player.
not your job.
Your job's to win.
Your job's to win for Texas A&M. Do what it takes to win at Texas A&M. And I think it made me think about Urban Meyer. Got a lot of criticism when they were saying, well, you're not getting Tim Tebow ready for the NFL because you're running your system. Like,
I'm trying to win a game.
He's got to win for Florida and do whatever it takes to win at Florida.
I do think there's some recruiting going on by saying that. Like, we got to get these guys ready for the NFL. So I'm sure that's part of his messaging.
But but you don't find that to be just a little bit? Okay.
No, I don't.
That's good.
I mean, if I took press conferences to mean to be the gospel, then yes. But no, I think sometimes we just say things.
Well, maybe.
I say things on this show, and then people will bring it up to me like, oh, yeah, I guess I meant it like this.
But like to say, I'm going to run an NFL-style offense, even though it's not working, because I want my guys to be ready to get into the NFL.
I want to win games first. And in the journey to win games, my job is to make you the best possible football player. And if that means the next level being the Arena Football League or the NFL, that is my job to get you to your goals. Because as a teacher, as a college coach, I think you are a teacher and a mentor. My job is to get you to where you want to be.
Okay, what if you...
By winning.
Yes, I was going to say, what if you get 10 guys in the NFL, but you win 8 games?
What was your team's potential?
Well, if you got 10 guys in the NFL.
You should win 10 games.
All right, so what if you had... what if you're like some of those Baylor teams that didn't put a lot of guys in the NFL?
But you won games?
But you win games.
I want to win games, but trying to get the most out of your player to the next level, to me, can be, again, it isn't just a black and white NFL or whatever. It is the highest potential that you can reach.
To me, it's win games, do whatever is necessary to win games here, and then when a guy moves on, I am rooting for him like crazy to have a great career and make a lot of money, but what you're here is to win for Texas A&M.
How about don't hinder?
And I'm not saying that Jimbo didn't. I'm just. It's just I thought about it from it took me back to that Urban Meyer controversy, if you want to call it that.
Not a big Urban Meyer fan.
I don't like him as a person,
but Duke can coach college football.
But I mean,
I don't know him as a person, but what I've read.
If I was an athletic director, and I heard Michigan State might be talking to him. If I was an athletic director,
I think they should probably stay away from him, considering what they've gone through over the last few months. But whatever.
No, I'd hire him.
But it's time to win.
Yeah,
wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so since we're being positive, and it's the first segment, and usually in the first segment we have something positive to end the segment with. Let's end the segment positively, Olin.
Well, I would, what's today? Wednesday?
Middle of the week.
You know what?
Hump day, as they say.
If I would be positively thrilled to have lunch with, say, some really good chopped beef on a baked potato.
Tell me more.
Yeah, because I'm positive that if I went to Fargo's, that not only could I get that chopped beef on a baked potato, as well as other things, but I'm positive it's going to be I'm going to be very pleased. My taste buds are going to be having a Mardi Gras. They're going to love it so
They're
much.
a 12-win taste bud. That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
But by the way, I'm positive they have another option on there. They have a couple
Well,
other
they
options.
have, yes.
They have the beef ribs.
They do.
Today.
Big ones. Big old beef. Juicy.
Big, thick. Delicious.
Beef ribs.
Sure. Just bite them and just move your head when you're doing it.
Like it's almost primal
Yeah.
the way you eat it. Yeah.
Maybe
They got other things. I'm positive you're going to like it.
And I'm positive you're going to love the experience.
Yeah, and I'm positive if you've met Alan and Reese and Belinda, you'd love those folks as much as they love you.
They'll high five you. They'll hug you. They'll fist pound you. They'll shake your hand. They'll just nod their head.
And most of all, they'll give you some really good barbecue.
They will. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt. The what?
The best barbecue in Texas, i.e. the world.
That happens to be their trademark.
Well, because I'm positive that it's true.
Yeah, I'm true. I'm positive it's Fargo's. Saludos, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. I am David Nuño. And, OB, before we get into games we want to watch this weekend, can you fill me in a little bit? I've seen some reports. I know you wrote about it a little bit. What's the latest with the Michigan sign stealing scandal? I know that they're saying they have evidence that, Rutgers and Ohio State were sharing their signs or something like that?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know about that. I don't. What I know the latest is, first of all, the Big Ten Commissioner's Office of Big Ten says, hey, letting y'all know that we're investigating you. Or, you know, we're checking on all this. And Michigan is supposed to officially respond to the official notification today. They're supposed to officially respond. And I'm just guessing. Here's what Michigan's going to come out and say. Hey, we don't know anything about this. We had no knowledge of it. This Stallions guy was doing this all on his own. Our coaches don't know anything about it. And, you know, we moved on from him because of this. And then they're going to say, the Big Ten is probably going to say, yeah, that doesn't sound believable to us. And they're going to say, really? Prove that we did something that we knew. And nothing will happen.
Well, here's Dan Wetzel's report. Michigan and Purdue broke the exact same rule. They use advanced scouting to steal the future opponent's signals.
You said Ohio State and Purdue?
No, he says Michigan and Purdue.
Okay. I thought you were saying somebody else on top of this.
Yeah, and there is an Ohio. Where's the other one on Ohio State? It is here from Tom Van Haren and Adam Rittenberg that sources to us tell me that the Big Ten received documents from Michigan that says Ohio State, Rutgers, and Purdue communicated about Michigan signals in 2022. Docs show Purdue, which faced Michigan in the Big Ten championship game, got offensive signals from Ohio State and D signals from Rutgers.
I think what's the end of result of all this is going to be, it's going to be that coaches are going to get what they've been wanting for a long time, is they're going to put the microphone in the
quarterback's helmet.
The quarterback's helmet. Hello. Yeah, but oh my gosh, that means it's no big deal for Alabama and A&M and Texas and Oklahoma and all those people to do it, but gosh, now Texas State has to do it. Well, you wanted to play Division I football.
Right.
If you don't like it, play intramurals, brother.
Dan
It's
Hawkins?
Division I football. Yeah, Dan Hawkins.
Colorado,
Who,
1994.
by the way, was just a great guy. Now I think he was later than that.
Was he later than that?
Yeah, because Gary Barnett was their coach.
Yeah.
I think 94, we probably were still talking about McCartney, maybe Neuheisel.
Okay. I'm trying to see the exact year just because I'm interested.
But that probably
Colorado. Oh, my God. Way later.
Yeah, he was probably like 2006.
Yeah. Look at you. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, such an easy fix. But why don't they fix it?
Because.
And personally, you know, I'm of the mind that, look, if everybody's stealing signs and you know it, but we just don't like the way you went about stealing signs. And that's what
I don't like that you were on the sideline with glasses on.
And, you know, here's another thing. I've said this before. When you look at all the ways teams have been caught actually cheating and doing things to manipulate the grades, like North Carolina did when they had classes that didn't exist.
Right.
Just to pass. But this is the thing that the NCAA is gonna get upset about. Come on. I'm not. There's been so many more egregious things that have happened that the NCAA doesn't react to.
Let's get into games that you want to watch, Olin, shall we?
It's a good week of college football.
There are some good games.
Right. Let's start off with this one. How about, would you want to watch USC at number 6 Oregon? You probably watch it if you like a lot of scoring.
Yeah, I want to see some scoring. I actually wouldn't mind a blowout.
Yeah, especially if it was the Ducks doing the blowing out. You know,
I used to like USC. I don't like them anymore.
I never have, except when they played Notre Dame.
I loved them when they played Texas.
You know, I have to admit, I was playing.
You were covering Texas. I get it.
Yeah. So anyway, Oregon's defense really isn't bad. So the winner isn't officially in the Pac-12 championship game, but man, it'll be hard to keep them out. The winner of that game.
How do you feel about Oregon being the highest ranked one-loss team, as opposed to Texas, or some people want to say Bama, even though they lost to Texas?
Well, I can see it. Look, if you watch the game, it was
their only losses to Washington.
To Washington, which is ranked 5th.
Yeah,
and they were on the. It was a coaching mistake that caused them to lose that game. But then I'd have to come back and say, well, who's their best win?
Washington State, no. Cal, no. Oregon.
Well, they are Oregon. So
sorry,
so
Utah. I meant to say Utah.
Utah,
number 13. Utah.
right? And Texas has the win of what, number 8, Alabama.
Yeah.
So to be honest, I mean, to be fair, I'd have to say Texas at this point.
Who's got a worse loss? Texas has a worse loss to Oklahoma now. Than Oregon losing to Washington.
To Washington. All right. Well, see, that's fair. But you know what they've always said in the past to justify getting in who they want to get in? It's not about who you lose to. It's about who you beat.
Sure. So
I would say Oregon.
Even though I know that
I'm changing my mind, I'd say Oregon.
Oregon, okay. So if Texas and Bama are the two teams, there's one spot and one of those two teams gets in, maybe because of my Texas anti-love or anti-whatever word you want to use, I would say Bama is the better team now.
Okay.
But because Texas beat Bama, that wipes it out.
Yeah, I always say are the records the same? Are the records the same? And I don't care if that means, well, yeah, but Alabama beat Georgia and Texas beat whoever. If the records are the same and they have a head-to-head, in my opinion, the head-to-head should win.
Yep.
Just change that and put it Texas A&M, and put yourself in that
100%
position.
agree.
So, because if you don't, then what you're saying is the actual games don't matter.
You're right.
The actual games. So what we should do is just put a committee in a room in August, and they're going to just tell us who the best team is and make them the national champion, and we don't have to play a game.
When we come back, we're going to continue going through these games we want to watch. We went a little bit long there. Right now, we're talking QC Kinetics. Where's your pain? Is it in your knees? Is it in your hips? Is it in your back? If it is, let's fix it, guys. Don't let it sideline you any longer. If they're telling you, you know what, you might need surgery to feel better. They're telling you need steroids to feel better. And you've probably gone down that path before. I know my mom has. And it just doesn't get better. It gets better for like a week. And then you're like, man, the pain's back. I'm not feeling good. You might want to consider, there's no might to it. You should consider calling the professionals at QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative treatment that restores and repairs that damaged joint tissue. And they do it the old natural way by using the science of properties from your own body to bring you lasting relief. And there's no drugs and no downtime. QC Kinetics is trusted by patients all over America. They got over 150 clinics nationwide with advanced protocols that get you moving again, and they're right here in the Brazos Valley. So let's get back to living life the big way in 2024. Go out and enjoy what you enjoy doing. And by the way, it's a great use of your SFA and HSA funds. Put them to work to help you feel better. The advanced regenerative treatments are getting amazing reviews for people with arthritic pain and pain from injury. So there's no drugs, no downtime, no surgery. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. Let their medical professionals give you a better path towards that pain-free life. It is QC Kinetics. The phone number, easy, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That's 979-452-6000. We got some games to still get into. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, OB, let's continue through the game. So the first one we did was USC at Oregon, but Ole Miss is now taking their act on the road.
Yeah, Ole Miss is, a top 10 team, or I don't know what they were ranked after last night, and they're going to Georgia, number 1, and so an SEC matchup of top 10 teams.
Yep.
And, if look, Georgia's trying to be the number 1 team in the country, stay there in the playoff. This would be a big win for them if they can get it. For Ole Miss, if you can get this one.
Now you're in the conversation.
Now you're in the conversation to get into the playoff.
Would they pass all the one-loss teams?
I don't know if they pass them all, but they might. If you get a win over Georgia, now I don't anticipate seeing that.
Right.
And quite frankly, if Georgia was to just wear them out, I think I might want to watch that whole game.
Right.
To watch Georgia just pound on them. But that's a heck of a matchup to see.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm looking forward to that one. I expect Georgia to do what Georgia does in these games, where people kind of forget how good they are, turn it on. Although the Missouri game was close.
Yeah, Missouri gave them a run. Missouri's not bad.
Yep. What's the next one?
How about number? I don't know again what the updated rankings were, but it was number 13. Utah at number 5. Washington undefeated, looking like they could have this dream season. Utah's that team that sometimes you forget how good they are.
Yep.
Sometimes I think they forget how good they are. But in a big game, Utah's just always dangerous. So I think this is one of those games where you think Washington's going to keep everything rolling, but Utah's that tough team that's probably going to play better defense than Washington has seen all season.
I agree with that 100%. Michael Penix, he is.
I think it's his to lose now.
Yeah, I agree.
After Jaden Daniels wasn't bad, but
they got 3 losses.
Yeah,
he didn't finish the game, obviously. Yeah, I think it's Michael Penix as well. Although we'll see how LSU finishes out and if Washington stumbles here, but I still think he would have.
You know what I don't get? I don't get the national guys that keep pushing J.J. McCarthy at Michigan as a
undefeated top team.
Look at his numbers and who have they played?
They haven't played anybody this weekend. They get their first
well,
real
we'll
game.
Get to that too. Maybe I should have held on for that. But next, I'm going to say number 8, Alabama, Kentucky. Look, Alabama should boat race them, right?
Yep.
Alabama, but is this not the prototypical setup for a trap game?
Well, Kentucky
is not bad.
They're not bad. They're kind of like A&M in a way, but they're better. But they're kind of like
better
A&M.
Coached.
They're better. They are a team that can play tough defense. They can run the ball. I'd be curious to see what Jalen Milroe does against them.
And they're at home. Against a team that just is coming off such an emotional big win. Now, if I had to put money on it, I'm going with Alabama.
I'm going Bama too.
But that just looks like it could be a trap game.
And then the one we alluded to a moment ago.
Number 2, Michigan. Number 9, Penn State. This is I think the best team that Michigan has played is Rutgers. And not put, dismiss Rutgers, but that's not a great team. That's the best team you played. Now, they've beaten everybody.
Yep.
They played by at least 24 points. So they've done what you're supposed to do against bad teams. But Penn State is the first team that they're going to play that it really has a chance to fight back. And by the way, Penn State still has championship aspirations. And it's at Happy Valley. So I think that's the game of the week.
Yeah. What happens to James Franklin if they lose? Anything?
No.
He's
in that. You know what? You always say that. Who'd you say that you thought A&M was going to be like? What program that they were going to be like? What coach?
Oh, Mark Richt in Georgia before? Yeah, that's who he is.
That's what James Franklin is at Penn State.
Yep. And it actually worked out for Georgia when they made the change.
It did.
It took a little bit longer. Not that. How long did it take for Kirby to win?
I think they could have won a national championship like his third year.
2, yeah.
But he botched the coaching on that one, but he learned from it.
He did.
It's okay to make a mistake if you learn from it.
If you learn from it. All right, let's do our SEC power rankings.
All right, feel free to disagree and jump in anytime you disagree with me.
Number 1, Georgia.
Georgia's number 1. Number 2, I've got Alabama. Number 3,
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Number 4,
Missouri.
I put LSU, which, by the
Oh.
way, they did beat Missouri.
They did beat Missouri.
So I got Missouri 5, followed by Tennessee 6,
Okay.
Kentucky 7,
Kentucky 7. Okay.
number 8, Texas A&M.
I think that's high for a team
Well,
that's
okay, well, see when you're going to disagree with me. Number 9, Florida.
If they were to play,
They just lost to Arkansas last week.
They did just lose to Arkansas. If they were to play, I'd probably take A&M. So okay.
Number 10, Auburn.
We beat them.
Number 11, South Carolina.
We beat them.
Number 12, Mississippi State.
We might beat them.
Number 13, Arkansas.
We beat them.
And number 14, Vanderbilt.
We'd probably beat them with you at quarterback.
So. Let's hope so. So, I guess the lowest I would rank A&M would be 9th.
Yeah. It's between Florida and A&M.
And you know, again, Florida lost to Arkansas last week.
Is there something to be said about being almost there? They're almost beating Bama. They're almost beating Tennessee. They're almost beating Ole Miss. Just the last drive of the game.
I don't know. You know, if I'm in the Masters and I'm putting to win it and, you know, it stops at the lip of the cup, almost made it.
But you didn't.
But you didn't.
You didn't make it there.
So, I mean, does it count for anything?
Does it make you feel like you're close, or is it the way they manage games?
It's both.
Mm-hmm.
You're close, but the way they manage games is, you know, you got to win them. And you know what? To me, that makes it harder. It's kind of, let me go back to the golf analogy. You're putting to win the Masters, and you have a 10-foot putt, and it goes 9 feet and 11 inches and 11 and a half inches, and it's right there. Do you feel better because it got so close, or does it make you does it just feel like a punch to the stomach because, just a little bit?
It depends. Is this your first Masters, or is this a consistent?
No, this is the 10th straight time you've.
Then here's what I really think. I think if you don't find ways to win, you're a loser. And maybe that's too harsh of a term, but championship teams.
What you're saying is, if you ain't first, you're last.
Yes,
Ricky Bobby.
But if you championship teams or good teams find ways to win games,
and bad
teams and mediocre teams find ways to lose games.
I was watching my Cowboys this week. Right, they throw a pass that looks like a touchdown. I said, no, the guy didn't get into the end zone. You can say, well, he was hit, but why don't you just run into the end zone? All right. Then you did score a touchdown and you go for 2, and your guy looks like you have it. No, your quarterback stepped out of bounds.
Right.
And then at the end, throughout all that, you've got a chance. You got 1st and goal at the 6. And what happens? A guard jumps, false starts. You do things to yourself if you're not a great team.
If you don't find ways to, because again, it is multiple different ways of losing. It is not just one formula. But there is one. It's supposed to be positive hour, but we're just making a fact here. There is one thing that has been underperforming for multiple seasons. If I were to tell you, what's the one thing for sure that has underperformed for the last couple of years? What would you say?
For the last 3 seasons?
3 seasons.
Offensive line?
Yes.
Yeah. I think special teams have been erratic. I mean, they've had some great moments because you've got some great players, but, you know, they've been erratic.
But if there was one thing that has underperformed.
Offensive line.
And if your offensive line were better, would we feel better about the offense overall? And
your offense
I'd say
would
yes.
be better.
Yeah.
Your offense would be better if your offensive line was better.
And then the question is, why is the offensive line not that good?
And I think there's layers to that.
By the way, this is 2 different offensive line coaches because 21 was still Henson, right?
Yeah, but he was in 21. He was having to start over with a rebuilt offensive line.
But I'm just saying, like, we've kind of rebuilt on. There's always a freshman starting on this team. It feels like.
I think that's a problem, unless he's just a dadgum warhorse. But you don't want to have to always start a freshman because guys are hurt or guys aren't developed or whatever. If you bring in a freshman like Kenyon Green, who, by the way, as good as he was,
still struggled a little bit.
He still struggled as a freshman.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't believe. Look, if you're starting a freshman every year, then a couple years from now, you should have just a crazy good offensive line. If you're not starting them, if you're starting them because they're just great players, but I don't think that's the reason freshmen are starting here.
Wisdom goes a long way. Time, right? Like experience. All that does matter unless you are just like the 1% of the 1%, right? Like if you're, but there's a reason we go to our older people for information on how to handle things because they've been there, they've done that, they've gone through the grind. And you may be the most athletic freak out there, but if you've been the best player in high school, you've taken on maybe one or two really great players, but you're taking on everybody in the SEC, everybody you're playing was a great player.
I think your best case scenario is you got 3 juniors and 2 sophomores starting in the line now because your really good guys are gone by the time they're seniors, right? Mm-hmm. And the most guys you're ever going to have, I mean, if they're really good, you're only going to have, you know, the most experience is going to be juniors.
Yep.
So, but you always want to have some guys coming up. So you're not starting freshmen. Yeah, give me those, give me an offensive line with 3 juniors with NFL prospects and 2 sophomores that are rising going that way.
All right, we'll open up the text line and the hotline if you want to call in, the Brian Foley Law hotline. If you want to chit-chat about something, you can do that, 979-693-1150. I'd like some positive thoughts to end the hour, the go hour, and we'll get Kennedy to read some of those that have already come in. Right now, we're talking Heritage Films, Chance McClain's company. So I just saw somebody that we know committed to go play college somewhere. Congratulations to that. And it'd be cool if he did a little story, a little year flicks from Chance McClain, like talk a little bit about, it'd be cool if he'd done it every year, right? Like freshman year of high school, this is what I'm doing. Sophomore year, I'm on the JV. Junior year, I'm the varsity kicker as a junior. Senior year, boom, I'm committed to go elsewhere. I'm going to go play at this school. That'd be kind of a cool little journey to follow. And you can do that with your kids, your freshman year of college, your sophomore year. You can do it 6th grade, the freshman year of high school, different little benchmarks of your life. That's what these 20-minute videos that Chance does with the year flicks. It's a cool option that you can see the growth of your kid, their likes, their desires, things they're into, whatever it may be. It is really a cool thing that Chance does with the year flicks. The other thing he does is the Heritage Film, which you've heard me talk about 100 times, probably 1,000 times. And that is these videos, they're documentaries about your family business, your family ranch, your grandfather who started the company, down the road and has grown into just a cool place that everybody in the neighborhood goes to. And it's whatever your story may be, right? It could be that. It could be a bunch of buddies that play golf every Friday morning. They skip work and they go and then you kind of detail that journey. Make it a 2-hour movie and make it done by Chance McClain, who's the most creative guy I know. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. All right, the answer is no. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. You have a question that you asked during the break. And look,
this doesn't need to be brought onto the show.
we won't say who.
We were not going to say who.
All right? But you asked me if there's a certain person in the Brazos Valley that has not played college basketball that
Ever.
could score.
I don't even know if this person played high school basketball.
And look, full disclosure.
Or basketball ever.
Full disclosure, I have not seen this person play, so it's very hard. It's like when people say, they think they can beat you up in a fight. They don't know, right? Nobody knows, right? So I don't know. But your question was again, Cavs?
Do you think that this person in the Brazos Valley could shoot 1 3-pointer
and make it
over
the whole
against any SEC team matchup?
In a season or a game?
We really didn't clarify. I think we're thinking game.
One game.
I think that's where we all were at.
Just one game.
Well, I think you have a 1-game shot. Like this person is going in for one game only.
No, I don't believe
Can this person shoot?
Well, I don't know. It depends on whether he's a savage.
This
or
person, like honestly, we can set it up and we can go figure it out right now.
No, David, I don't think you would because I've mentioned to you we could go run routes in the parking lot and you still refuse. It's got to be on a turf field. You got to have
didn't know
pads.
it was you, Nick.
You got to got cleats.
Okay, how about
a helmet.
You want to go
your
do it
arm
today?
sleeve.
You want to do it today?
And then we got to roll, and then we got to go swim a mile.
Let's go
and
do
then
it.
a push-up contest.
No, I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
You want to be funny? Let's go after the show. After I have a meeting, but we can do it in between the meeting. No, I'll do it.
Run routes?
No, I'm talking about the basketball thing.
So now, okay.
I'm very excited
That's
to
not
see
what
this.
I meant.
Well, hold on. That's what we're talking about right now.
All I'm saying is
No, Nick's talking
Cocky
about
guy.
running routes.
Let's go after the show.
Wait. You're calling him a cocky guy?
Yeah. Let's go after the show.
Hello, Mr.
Done.
Hello,
I'll
Mr.
wear the
Pot.
jeans, and you won't score
This is
on me.
Mr. Kettle.
You would not score on a dude in jeans who's 50. All right, guaranteed. Let's go. Set it.
We'll talk about
this. I'm doing it. If you want to go, that's up to you. You want to keep bringing it up?
Okay.
I'm in.
All right. Cool.
If Billy will host the rest of the show, I'll go right now.
Name the park.
I don't know any parks. Do you know any?
Anderson.
I do.
Okay.
Right down the road.
Let's go. Anyway.
That turned into something I was not expecting it to be at all.
No, he's got to swim. He's got to do that. He's got to do this.
It happens.
I've watched a lot of games when there's a blowout and they bring the
third string
I don't
bench
want to call
player.
them scrubs, but yeah, the third. And sometimes they hit a 3.
You know what? It happens,
Yeah.
and I have faith.
By the
I
way-
think that this person could do it.
True story. I don't think I've played basketball since 2017, so that would be fun. Thank you, Nick. I can't wait to shut you down. Kevin, good job. Obi, appreciate you. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Juan Haris, John Harris, going to join us. We'll ask him. Well, I got a lot of stuff I got to ask him. We'll figure it out as we go. It's TexAgs Radio. This couldn't have worked out any better after our last discussion in the last segment. John Harris on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. You've seen me play defense in basketball before. Nick Savage, would he score a 3 on me if we were playing?
Oh man, I feel for anybody that is playing offense against David Nuño. I feel. And then if that person scores and maybe has a little something to say to David Nuño, it is absolutely on.
Johnny,
what triggered this? What happened?
Nick, do you want to explain the conversation, or would you rather move on?
It became a question of, would I be able to score a single 3-pointer in one SEC game, and then that was brought up to David, and then it became a competition.
And I was like, hey, it scored on me, bro. Like, I shut down a Hall of Famer in Calvin Murphy. All right, Nick Savage ain't scored on me.
This is absolutely true for people that would question that. That is absolutely true. Now, Calvin was in his 60s, but
Golden Gloves champion.
But he can still ball, man. He can absolutely ball, and he was so frustrated at one point. I thought those Golden Gloves were going to come out as he was going to throw hands with David. But I would put my trust in David in that. But
Johnny, that was 2014.
Nick would get one shot off close to the rim, and there would be 2 broken ankles and a broken wrist on the next 2 shots for sure.
Hey, that was so long ago, dude. I was in early 30s, so I'm darn near 50. Let's move on. John, I wanted to talk about, see how I want to phrase this. I want to talk about how A&M plays games so close, right?
Yeah.
And winning teams find winning plays, losing teams find ways to lose. But A&M has a formula, regardless of who they play, to have these close games. And I know they have heart, because I saw a lot of heart in that Ole Miss game. But I think that's the price of admission when you play SEC football. That you better have heart to be out there. But is it the way they manage games to why they're always so close?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough question to answer, David, because I saw this for a long time with the Texans. I remember 2017 before Deshaun had gotten hurt. I mean, we had games. We went to New England. And we had a game where we're swapping haymakers, and it looks like we might win this game. But we settle for a field goal at the end, and then you're facing Tom Brady, and you're on the road, and Brady makes great plays, and then Brandon Cooks catches a touchdown and beats you within the last 15 seconds. It tears your heart out. Then we went to Seattle. Same kind of thing. We picked off a pass of 2:30 left in the game, but we can't run the clock out, so Russell gets one more chance. He goes down. He beats you. That was 2017. There was probably one other one. 2019, we went to the Saints. Deshaun throws this incredible touchdown pass with 30 seconds left. Are we going to pull this thing off on Monday night? And then, you find a way to make a mistake, and all you got to do is make one stop. And they had 8 seconds left, and that all they can do is throw a quick pass, timeout, kick a field goal. Well, don't give them the quick pass. And one guy just went brain dead, gave him a quick pass, and gave him the 5 yards needed for Will Lutz to kick a 59-yard field goal. My point in all that is, number one of the reasons we lost all those games was because we were facing an all-time quarterback, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. We just lost all those games. Man, we had the heart. We had a few players that we could get in there, we could make plays, and we could be close, but we couldn't close the door. And it really hit me this Sunday when we beat the Buccaneers. And I'm going to get back to the Aggies in a second. We have 46 seconds left, and CJ walks in the huddle and says, I'm good. We're good. I got this. Give me time. I'll slice them up. 6 plays later, we've got to win. He scores in 40 seconds. So there's a part of it that the quarterback has a lot to do with it. And Jackson Dart was tremendous. And I'm not putting Jackson Dart up there with the top 2 or 3, but Jackson Dart has got NFL talent. Jackson Dart is an incredible talent, both with his legs and through the air. And, Ole Miss had a couple guys making some big plays. And look, I mean, you did everything you could to win a game on the road. You're facing a top 10 team, a top 12 team at the time, whatever it was. You're in their building, which is very difficult to win. They're playing very well this year. And yet, it comes down to a field goal. If I had told you this, we have this thing, David, now that we've started kind of in our office, we walk around and say, hey, what if I told you it's 38-35, last play of the game, and you're kicking a field goal? Would you just jump right to that moment and say, yeah, I'll take it? I'll absolutely take 38-35 with us for the chance to go to overtime. I'll take it, but you miss a field goal. Look, I mean, you guys miss field goals. You know, things get blocked, things get, touched, whatever. It happens. I actually, as I went back and watched the game, because I was calling the same Houston game, David, I went back and watched the game and thought, I'm probably more proud of the Aggies for that performance than I am for anything else this year. That, to me, was their guttiest, toughest performance. Not cleanest, not best, but I felt like it was the toughest and the grittiest to stay in there and take the haymakers from Ole Miss and then fight back. In some cases, literally, but you get the point, the figurative part. They fought back, and they fought back in a big way. And Max was taking some shots. I mean, he took shots, but he also delivered them too. I walked out of there, and I always, you and I don't talk about this segment before I come on. So I'm always curious what you're going to start with and how you're going to ask me. And so I had it kind of, planned in my head, like, I don't know if you're going to like what I'm about to say, but I really liked what A&M did on Saturday, even in a losing effort. Yeah, I know it's a loss. I get it. It's a lot of talent. Had you lost to Mississippi State that way, I wouldn't have said that. But you wouldn't have had that performance against Mississippi State and lost. It's a really good Ole Miss team at their building, in their building, and you nearly pulled it out with, guys being banged up and, Max taking shots. I was actually more proud of the Aggies on that day. Not to say that you got to be happy with a loss, but I was more proud of just the effort. And that's the kind of effort, and that's the kind of chutzpah you've got to have every time you go on the field. And if you do that, you don't lose to Auburn. You won't lose those games to Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State. You won't get tripped up in any of those games. It won't even be close against South Carolina. And that's the kind of effort that maybe puts you over the top against an Alabama team that at the time was struggling. I felt like you got that effort against Ole Miss. Not perfect, but the effort, I think, the guts, the chutzpah was there to get a win at Ole Miss. And sometimes the other team, I was about to say something, but it really only applies to the pros. Like, they get paid too, which is true. They get paid as well. But you just came up short, and sometimes that happens.
Johnny, I agree with everything you said. There's a but coming, but I agree with everything, right? Because in a vacuum, yes, I was proud of him. I still am proud of him, right? Yeah, that's all true. Where I struggle with is I've had that conversation before. Maybe not as gutsy, right? But like there's a different reason every time they lose for why they lost. And sometimes they're the same reasons, just multiple different ways. Last year against Bama, that was a gutsy performance against Bama. You lose on the last play. Okay. Tennessee this year, you have a chance on the last possession. You have no offense. They punt return for a touchdown, game gets whatever, right? Like there's a different reason. And after multiple 2 years in a row of combining for 10 wins, where you should be doing that a year, in my opinion, and multiple years of, well, it was, if this goes right, you win this game. And if this goes right, they're flooded with it. It's just, I'm tired. That maybe that's like, I've seen this story before.
Yeah, David, that's an excellent point. And that's why I was having such a hard time kind of reconciling my feelings about this game. Not that my feelings matter, but just in discussing it, because there were things I watched and went, ooh, that was good. I like the little wrinkle down on the goal line of using linemen in the backfield. Like, okay, that was good. Like, you saw some things. You could see that, they're not just standing pat. Okay, that didn't work. So, we're going to continue to do it because it'll eventually work. It was like, no, that didn't work. So let's try something different. But I'm with you. How many times this year has the defense in the secondary, come up and just lock down receivers? Big time receivers just get nothing. Absolutely zilch. Yet against Alabama, Jermaine Burton goes off. But Tennessee's receivers couldn't get a yard. But then Harris goes off the other day, catching everything. And so you're right. You brought up a really interesting word, and that's you said tired. Fatigue. You get fatigued of Okay. And as a team also, you're like, okay, well, what's it going to be this week? What's going to happen this week? And that's where it's really tough when you're not winning like you think you should, or you're just not winning at all, because you start looking for what are the ways that we're going to lose this game. And you see a play happen in the game and you go, oh, that's it. That's the one. All right. We ain't got it today. And you know what? That happens to teams. But think back to the 2020 year. It didn't matter what happened in those games. It didn't matter. Kellen Mond could have broken 3 legs, and it didn't matter. The Aggies were going to find a way to win because they had a belief. After they beat Florida, it was like nobody's beating us no matter what. And you can kind of tell this team is like, man, we fight, but it feels like there's that moment of, something's kind of broken down. We're not sure what it is, but it's just not, I don't know. I don't feel it. And that was kind of I knew the result of the game by the time I sat down and watched it. And so I was kind of looking for those things. Was there a moment where, okay, it kind of turned, and it really felt like it just did. It's a little different in that, to me, this is a top 10 team in their building. But still, the way the defense gave up they gave up a 200-yard receiver and a 100-yard rusher. And this defense has put straps on people all year at times. Alabama struggled for everything it got in that game, and then you see how easy Alabama had it against LSU, and you're like, dang it. So, there's a consistency level. And still, I would tell you, this is still a fairly young team. It's still to me a fairly young team. So there's still some things they're getting over, but you would have thought by now, okay, we've got enough talent to overcome those things. So I give credit to Max for fighting through it, but Ole Miss just on this day, they had the better quarterback by just this much. They had the better running game by this much. They had the better receiver, in Trey Harris by a little bit more. And it resulted in a 38-35 loss. And I'm with you, David. There's a fatigue level that hits, but what happens for the team in that case is you start looking for when's it going to happen next. When I saw it, like I mentioned, that game in Seattle in 2017. You were there for that game. I could see it in that game. Like once the Seahawks got the ball back with like 2 minutes left, I could just see it. I could see Russell Wilson like, we're going down to win this game, y'all. And I could see on the Texans side, like they were just hoping that they could hang on. And it's got to be, you can't be hoping to hang on anymore. You got to put teams down. And this is a great team for that. Mississippi State is not a good football team. They're not a good offensive football team at all. They've got some dudes on defense, but you got to put them to sleep early. And you got to step on them early and not let them up. If you let them up and let them believe they're in the game, then you're going to start having those beliefs in the second half of, are we really going to win this game? And this is a game you have to win for sure.
All right, so considering you just said that, what if Will Rogers goes from Mississippi State, and he's still a TBD, and Jalen Henderson might have to go for A&M? Then what?
This is weird, David, but I feel like there's a natural response for a team when, especially a new quarterback is playing, when you have a talented team in particular, that everybody else says, look, we can't leave that guy out on an island, man. We've got to do everything possible to help him. Whatever we got to do, we got to help him. Coaching staff says it. Players say it. What we got to do to help, we got to do whatever we got to do to help him. There's a higher level of focus because someone is new in the lineup, and we got to help that guy out in any way, shape, or form. And I keep using Texas as an example, but I remember we went to Cincinnati week 2 of the 2017 season. We had 22 guys in injury report. 22.
That was a Monday night game, right?
It was a Thursday night game.
Thursday night game, yeah.
So we played on a Sunday against the Jaguars, and they beat the hell out of us. I mean, literally beat the hell out of us. We didn't have enough guys to field a 46-man game day roster, and decided to start a rookie quarterback on his 22nd birthday on Thursday Night Football with no practice, just walkthroughs. And yet everybody stepped up. They put centers at tight end. They put tight ends on the bench. They ran 3 running backs. One guy hadn't even played running back at a while. I mean, They did everything possible. All the coaches stepped up. The defense was like, hey, we got to help him out. And then he ended up making plays himself, and we ended up winning that game somehow. So I think in this situation, if you do have to go to Jalen, to me, it's not a horrible thing, because I do think that everybody else responds. It's like it's responding in time of crisis. And in a football way, that's what this is. And so I kind of feel like everybody will step up. The defense will be like, yo, they get nothing. If Jalen puts one touchdown on the board, that's enough. So I feel like everybody will kind of rally a little bit. They'll make life tough on Will Rogers if he plays. It'll be his first game back in a while. There's going to be some rust. I don't feel like Will likes this offense that he's in. It's been kind of more of a running-focused offense as opposed to the air raid he was running. But I feel like the natural response of a team that is this talented, it'll say, Jalen, we're good. We got you. Everybody steps up their level of play, which they should do all the time, but it's even more heightened focus because there's a new quarterback in particular in the game.
That Cincinnati game you're talking about, just for my memory, is that the game that O'Brien ripped into a media member post-game? I remember one time in Cincinnati that happening. I don't know if that's the same game.
It was against Cincinnati, but it was the year before at home, because Brian T. Smith was asking him about why the offense hadn't gotten it done that night. And we won the game 12-10. And Bill O'Brien reminded Brian T. Smith that was, 4 division titles or whatever it was,
right.
Yeah. After the Cincinnati game. So yeah, the one in 2017 was an interesting night to say the least. And now we go to Cincinnati on Sunday, which is going to be interesting as well, because we'll see the man himself, Joe Burrow. That'll be my first time seeing him live. So I'm not happy about seeing him, but I'm very curious to see him live and see what it looks like. So I've seen all the great ones, and I feel like he's the next in line. So there's an excitement level to see him battle our guy C.J. Stroud, who's been incredible.
Yeah, he has been incredible. Johnny, let's close with an A&M question about how they make something of this season, regardless, if Max comes back or not or whatever. To me, the only thing salvageable is going 8-4 and hopefully winning a bowl game, which seems impossible the way these games come down to the wire. So let's how do they make something of the rest of the season to keep a little bit of optimism, if you can, with Connor next year?
Beat LSU in Baton Rouge, right? Games in Baton Rouge, right?
Yes, sir.
Beat LSU in Baton Rouge. I mean, to me, it's simple as that, because you beat LSU, more like you're going to beat Mississippi State, and then who's the November Abilene Christian? Okay, you're not going to sleep through Mississippi State, but you're going to beat Mississippi State. You're going to beat Abilene Christian. There's 7 wins, right? If you beat LSU in Baton Rouge, no matter what happens in the bowl game, because I'll tell you this with bowl games nowadays, with so many players opting out, transfer portal. I think LSU came to a bowl game, came to the Texas Bowl a couple years ago, and I think they played K-State. And they had no quarterbacks. They had nothing. Their coaching staff had all left. I mean, it was a total mess. And so I kind of leave the bowl game out. I mean, it'd be great if you can get one, but beat LSU in Baton Rouge. To me, that game, a win over that team, no matter if Jaden Daniels is healthy or not, beating that team in that building to end the season will leave everybody with maybe not the greatest feeling, but you know what? They will have just had the best Boston cream pie they've ever had. Or think of your favorite dessert, peach cobbler, whatever it is. The steak wasn't great. The appetizers were okay. But my God, that dessert was great, and I'll come back for that. It's like playing golf. You get on the 18th hole, you've hit a 140 already. You're just like, get me through this last hole. And you hit one from 260 within 3 feet of the hole. And you're like, you know what? That'll keep me coming back. Beat LSU in Baton Rouge. That'll keep everybody coming back, including, and maybe some players as well. I'll make it even better for 2024.
John Harris, Texans sideline reporter and footballtakeover.com czar. Johnny, thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you, man.
Later, bro.
Nick, not talk trash to this, man. I'm telling you, not do it. You might have a broken bone after it's all said and done.
Hey,
goodbye.
To be fair, he didn't talk trash. Just to be fair. It was just, old man gets his competitive juices going. Nick's always been very classy and quiet about it. All right, we're talking a little Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. When you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet, you know you're getting a good experience, a good deal, and you're going to find the vehicle that you want. So if you are in the market for a certain type of vehicle, let them know. They're going to help you find it. If you need a certain price point, we all need a certain price point, let them know. If you're looking to trade in, have them give you their idea, right? They tell you this is what we can do for you. I think it's going to be very competitive. You're going to be very happy with that entire process when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Many of you have thought about going there. I'm telling you, I can speak from experience. It was an incredible time buying our Chevy Tahoe there just about a year ago. Billy's done it. Dante Hall does it. R.C. Slocum only buys his cars there from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It is the place to go when you're looking for a vehicle, and it's not a far drive. We're talking about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the edge of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Friday night, I'll be on the call with Casey at NIP as A&M Soccer does take on Colorado, first round of the NCAA tournament. Coach G is in studio with us. Hello, sir.
Howdy.
So let's start off with the whole Florida experience, and then we'll work our way through the great news you all are hosting, which is fantastic.
Well, the Florida experience started in Louisiana.
That's right.
We've been gone for a while.
I was there with you guys. That's right.
We've been gone for a while.
How did that feel like that? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of team bonding, but that's a long time to be away.
It was. We were gone for 8 or 9 days. Could have been 12 days.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, we just kind of looked at it as this is the grind we've got to do to get back into the NCAAs and hopefully to get it home. And so here we are, going to get to play at home on Friday night. So, it was to go and play at LSU and then to drive to LSU and then to drive to Florida was a challenge. But here we are.
Yeah. Let's talk about the selection show too, and just the reaction from your team, because I think we were all pretty confident you were in, but then you get a home game. I guess a good program in Colorado, but you get that home game. How was that reaction?
Well, I think it was genuine.
Yeah.
If you see it on any of the social channels of what our girls were looking at, because a lot of times when the way that the soccer tournament is, it's not like the basketball tournament where they're in the southern region and you're going to play your first round game in Portland, Oregon. It's like, what's south about that? It's because money doesn't have any impact on the way those tournaments are done. Well, in soccer, it does. They seed the top 32 of 64 teams, and then it's totally regional because they're trying to save as much money as they possibly can. And so, anything within 400 miles is a drive. And what we have found over the years is that they kind of fill the map. Phil Stevenson is our associate head coach, had this discussion yesterday. It's like they kind of fill it like a jigsaw puzzle, where they put those pieces together wherever. Yeah. And Texas and Montana and Colorado and a lot of that are kind of like the big sky portions of the puzzle. And not a whole lot usually is within that 400 miles. So we've gotten, over the years, a lot of those pieces that are just so far apart. We've had some amazing teams come to us over the years that are not within those 400 miles. So we've had, in the first round of the tournament, we've had Montana come to us. We've had BYU come to us. We've had Utah come to us. We've had, now Colorado come to us. So I was pretty sure that they were just going to put us on a bus and send us to Austin, because Texas, who came in fourth place in the Big 12, a conference that only got 3 teams in the NCAA tournament, SEC got 8. They got hot at the end. They beat TCU last game of the regular season, and then weather happened, and the Big 12 ironically moved the tournament to Austin. It worked out well for them, and they won the tournament. So they got a seed, and I was like, well, there you go. We're going to go to Austin again, like we did last year. And so when it came up that in the first minute of the selection show, that we were a seed, I was surprised by that, because we were had a pretty high number, like 49 or 50 in the RPI, that we were going to be the 8 seed and we were going to be hosting. I was just as shocked as a girl. So when you see the reaction on the social media channels of our girls, like going, wait, what?
Right.
That was genuine, because it was a bit of a shock. Now, the fact that Colorado is coming to us, Colorado are a dangerous team. They're very SEC-like. They're very athletic. They're very dangerous. They've got a goal scorer who scored 15 goals in their less than 20 games. They're hot. They've won their last 3 games, unbeaten in their last 4, and they're on kind of playing with house money is the way I'm sure that they're looking at it. So they're a team that is going to come in and is I'm sure excited, just as excited as we are about playing at home and getting the opportunity to play at home. They're excited about being in the tournament, because 3 weeks ago they probably weren't in the tournament, and now they've played their way in. So it should be a dynamite game Friday night, 7:00.
You said something there that caught my attention, and we've known it, but just to hear it out loud. 8 teams from the SEC in the tournament, and you've taken on how many? I mean, Florida State, Washington. There's a lot of teams you've already played that are in the tournament as well. So that was part of the reason you set up your schedule that way, to get your team battle tested. You have the SEC schedule, you have the non-conference schedule, and now you got to put it to work in the tournament setting.
Correct. So when I set up our schedule, with the idea. I mean, kids come to play for Texas A&M, and they come to play for me and our staff because we are trying to win a national championship. Mm-hmm. And so it's expected that we are going to get in the NCAA tournament because I set up a schedule to prepare us that's going to be strong enough for us to be a seeded team in the NCAA. That's the way we schedule our games. We don't play a bunch of patty cake teams that we're just going to, give a licking to. Mm-hmm. And we want to be battle tested. We need to learn about ourselves. And sometimes you'll learn about yourself more by not winning. Expose ourselves to whatever good teams are going to do to beat you. And that's happened for us a couple times, good few times this year. So now here we are. How much have we learned? And I think if you look at our team, and you've seen our team so much this year because you've done so many games for the radio broadcast, how much have we improved from that first weekend when we played Florida State and Washington State to now? And you see what we did in Florida. So we can go back to that, to beating South Carolina in the quarterfinal, to, what was, by everyone's, by everyone's standard, probably the greatest soccer game ever played in the SEC in that semifinal game against Georgia.
Yeah.
And, you look at that compared to when we played against Washington State in week one, and we're a completely different team. And, and it kind of irritates me. I can probably imagine what LSU and what Joe Burrow thinks about, the 7 overtime game when people talk about one of the greatest games ever. I would imagine he doesn't think it's that way. And that's kind of the way we feel about the game against Georgia that goes double overtime and we lose with 27 seconds left. You think about the opportunities that we created. We missed 2 penalty kicks. We missed a great chance just 30 seconds before they score the winning goal, and how we didn't defend the winning goal, and how, was it offside, and all those little things that kind of go into it. But those are things that we now look at and say, okay, that's something that we are going to get better at. Right. We have to, because now our season would end if we don't get better at those types of things. And, has the Lord given us these things to learn from and to get better from, so that we can now hopefully, put these things together and make a run towards the national championship. So the NCAA has given us this opportunity to play at home, the gift of playing at home. The winner of this game is going to go play the number 1 seed of the NCAA tournament. Thank you very much. But playing at home is where we are right now, and that's all we're really thinking about, because Colorado is so good that we can't think about anything else.
So if you want to go to the game, let's get it packed up, because this is why you get these home games. Let's pack it up. And you were saying that students are free.
Students get in for free. Aggie Soccer Club, who is our booster club under the umbrella of the 12th Man Foundation, students get in for free. Just show your ID, you get in for free. Game kicks off at 7:00. Get there early. Come on in, show your ID, and you are a freebie. And really, the tickets are only $5.
Right.
So for anyone here in town, it's a cheap date. Come on in, $5 to get in. Season ticket holders, I think, have been sent an email. If you want to come to the game, you can renew your tickets. Come on in. If you don't want to, you can decline those, which make those tickets available for someone to come and sit over there on the west side. And get in. There's going to be a concert going on over at Reed Arena. So its parking is $10 unless you already have a parking pass, and it's for free. And we need people to really pack that parking lot to come on over and pack Ellis for the match, because it is our last home game. I don't expect Morehouse State to beat Florida State in Tallahassee.
Right.
So this is our last home game of the season. The team is an exciting team to watch. It's a team that is really represented well, and we really need the support of the 12th man.
Coach G, thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, brother.
See you on Friday.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back on TexAgs Radio, Mark French talk a little hoops with us here on TexAgs Radio. Wrapping up our basketball coverage here on TexAgs Radio. Trying to get centered here. Look, big games coming up. Friday's going to be big. Ohio State. We got a lot to break down. And our next guest, he's going to be joining us more regularly when football season's over. But one thing I can guarantee, always has a great office. No matter what office he's in, he goes different offices. Mark French always has a clean office in the background. Mark, what's up, buddy?
Hey, David. It's great to be with you and excited to talk Aggie hoops. Certainly got some big games coming up.
Yeah, we do. Mark French on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. So let's just we can talk about the last game and then heading into Ohio State in a minute. But just overall, man, like when you think about where this program has been when you've been here, right, to where it feels that they are right now, what they're on the cusp of hopefully doing this year, just your emotions, your thoughts on this program that Buzz is building his way.
Let's put it this way. Texas A&M has never been to an Elite Eight in program history. Been to the Sweet 16 plenty of times. I got to be on one of those runs. Billy Kennedy certainly had some highs. Coach G certainly had some highs. Through the years, we've had great teams, but never been to an Elite Eight. And when I look at this team, preseason number 15, you got the preseason player of the year. You got plenty of pieces. What is this, year 5 for Buzz?
Yep.
It seems like so much is in place. And when I evaluate the landscape, you think about it, whether it's, UH, the SIPs, Tech, Auburn, Tennessee, Bama, Arkansas, you name it. These schools have busted through. They've made it to Elite Eights and Final Fours. And I think we're at the stage now where, we have a top 10 or 15 coach by any outlet in the country. We have a great roster. The fans are supportive. I think we had the second largest opening night crowd in program history the other night, over 2,000 students. So you can tell that trend is, that's a really good sign for what's to come. So overall, I put it this way. I think we have a 24-month window here where we need to bust through and find a way to get to an Elite Eight and, kind of break through that glass ceiling.
When you think about what's ahead non-conference wise, and it's like every other match, it's a pretty, it's a program. They may not all be ranked right now, but they're a program with rich history. Does it scare you? Does it excite you, considering there were some issues last year in the non-conference, but also this is a more veteran team that has kind of figured out their identity?
I think it definitely excites you. This is how every year should look schedule-wise. So check this out, 4 ESPN or ESPN2 games. So we're going to nationally televise versus Houston, number 7 in the country. Penn State, we get the tournament rematch. That's on ESPN. At Virginia, ESPN2, and then versus Memphis, ESPN2 as well. Going to be a lot of coverage for the Aggies, not just regionally, but nationally. And I think it's so important, Buzz's teams traditionally at A&M have started a little bit slower and then caught fire at the end. We have to, at least come out and go 4-2 in those 6 games, preferably 5 or 1 or better, because the reality is outside of Houston, the other 5 being Ohio State, SMU, Penn State, Virginia, and Memphis, those will be, in my opinion, teams ranked hopefully in the tournament in that 6 seed, 7 seed to 12 seed. And if we are who we think we are, we should be able to handle those. And, you go back to last year in Nuño and you think about what held us back in the tournament. Obviously, Penn State shot the lights out, but at the same time, we felt we should have been seated higher. And perhaps we proved the committee right. But at the end of the day, if we would have handled our business earlier in the year, we would have been, a 4 or 5 seed. And so important. I know it's early, but this is, these games that are coming up next couple of weeks determine seeding in March.
So how do they reach their potential this year and potential seeding and the level that we think that they can be at? What do they have to do? We know that they're always going to be strong defensively. Does it come down to finding different ways to score?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, here's the deal. In March, it comes down to guard play. It always does. And so you have Wade and Boots. Boots was we have him pegged as this beacon of consistency at times. And I think last year he was actually a little inconsistent in terms of scoring output. He had great stretches and then it would kind of be quiet. And I think this year what I'd love to see is us to have the best 1-2 guard punch in the conference. Because the talent's there, the production is there. And just pairing those guys together between Boots and Wade. And then we got to fill in around, and we also got to figure out the Marble situation. I don't know anything. I've had a lot of people ask, but getting him back is paramount. I think Solomon Washington taking a step is so important. He's the best raw talent we have on the roster. And then on the edges, you're talking Jace and Andy and Manny, these guys that I have, really circled as, X factors, whatever you want to call it. But if I were to identify one trait with each of them that I'm monitoring, it's the shooting, particularly the 3-point shooting percentage, and just in terms of number of attempts. We have to develop 1 or 2 knockdown guys to keep the floor space for Boots and Wade, and Hefner's in there as well. So I think shooting, it comes down to shooting. That's the modern game, and we got to, everyone on the roster should be 500 makes a day, because like I said, it's all in front of us. The roster's there. We're just gonna have to hit shots to keep the lane open for our guys to get downhill.
Mark, what about Manny Obaseki, a guy that I see so much potential? Didn't play a lot, 9 minutes. Is it because of the shooting? Is it because, he's a guy who can play multiple positions. I think he can play probably 1 through 4.
Yeah, on the surface you want to love it, right? And then sometimes you get in the game and it's like, no, I don't do that, son. And he just kind of makes you pull your hair out at times. But then other times you're like, oh my gosh, wait, is he the most talented guy on the roster? Mm-hmm. And so Manny's got a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde to him, but obviously the talent's there, and it's so exciting when he gets it going. I think he's another guy to monitor. Obviously the 9 minutes gave me a little pause when I was going through the box score, because I saw him play in open gym this summer. He looked fantastic. And so that'll be one to monitor. Again, I think it comes down to shooting. Who can put the ball in the hole from deep, because the guard play is there with Wade and Boots. And so it's just going to come down to who can space the floor. And, we'll maybe give up a little bit defensively if it means, we can, hit some shots on the other end.
What about the front court play? Obviously, there's a TBD when it comes to Julius Marble. Henry didn't have his best performance, but we know what kind of level of player that he is.
Henry's the type of guy, so we've gone over this before, but the older guys, sometimes, these exhibition games or early in the season, it's just hard to get the motor going. And you can say, got to be at the same all the time, got to be at this level. That's just not reality. And I think, look, Duke transfer, used to being in big games, likes the big lights, plays the best in the SEC tournament. He'll get it going. I'm not too worried about Henry. I am deeply concerned about the Marble situation. Just in turn, we got to have him. If we're going to go where we want to go in Sweet 16 or Elite 8, he's a guy you got to have. And then Andy, I think being able, again, stretch the floor. I just keep coming back to that. He was, what was that? He was 0 for 1 from 3 the other night, 0 for 2 from the field, 0 points. This is a guy who, in the back half of SEC play last year, really made his imprint on some games. I go back to the Arkansas game. He really helped us win. And he's a guy that, again, just like Henry, he'll get it going as the lights get bigger. But I think those two plus Marble, the rotation's going to get down to 8 or 9 in the big games. And so those are 3 of your 8. So I'm monitoring that very closely.
All right, so Wade had a great year, there's expectations for him this year, higher expectations than last year. Where can he take his game? Like, what do you want? What's the next evolution of Wade Taylor of 4?
Yeah, right. So he's so efficient, right? And I think I like that last year he started to be a little bit more selfish. If there's a 50-50, do I shoot it or do I swing it to, Andy in the corner? He would take the shot. And I think for me, it's just about him getting sheer volume of shots because he's going to hit. And so when I look at it, 11 field goals the other night, if I had to pinpoint where, if we're going to go to an Elite 8 that Wade needs to be, it's in that 15 to 18 shots a game range. Maybe a little bit less, maybe like 14 to 16, but he needs to be in the teens. And look, Nuño, 4 of 7 from 3 the other night. That's replicable. That's not fake. And so I think that's one. And then obviously assist to turnover. He was 6 assists, 1 turnover the other night. I think elite guards, like, guys that are going to make money playing basketball, it needs to be in that 4-to-1, 5-to-1 assist to turnover range. That'll be a mini metric to track for Wade. But I think for him, it's just we got to force feed. We got to get his shots into the teens. And, he probably needs to be 18 points a game or better to go where we want to go.
Last thing for you, what is it about Buzz Williams' teams that do get better? You've been there, you've seen it. So why do they get better at the end of the year? I know that's kind of like people presume that's going to happen with teams, but it doesn't always happen. His teams have a track record of not just getting better, getting significantly better as the year goes on.
Yeah, I think there's this evolution that happens, and they just continue to work. Like, I think some teams, they just, they do all this stuff in the preseason, and then they're just trying to hold it together all year. It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to, but they just have this way of they're going to continue to work and they're going to evolve. And Buzz just does an amazing job of moving the pieces around and looking at the roster and maximizing output. And I think it's just a credit to the staff, honestly, with how they adapt and how they continue to work. Like, they continue skill development during the year, right? The film everything is tracked. And so there's really no option but to get better, if guys are given energy and output. And so I think it's just this relentless pursuit of getting better. That's Buzz's catchphrase, get better, right? It's not just in the build up to the season, it's during. And I think a lot of programs, maybe they let off the gas or they're just too worried about putting in offenses or whatever, whereas I think a lot of times are really trying to make leaps and really improve in all areas as a program year round. So
Elite 8 level team, right? That's what they should be. That should be, as a fan's expectations, that's what this team can be.
Absolutely. I think it's time. I think it's year 5. There's plenty of talent on the roster. Went to the tournament last year. I think we should expect more from this team, and I hope the crowds turn out like they have been to support it. And I hope these games on national television, we have great showings. But yeah, Sweet 16 minimum should be the expectation. And I think it's not out of the realm of being realistic to say an Elite 8 team. That's where I'm at. That's where, you have 2 elite older guards. Let's go get it done. Do it for the first time in program history.
Let's get you in studio soon, man.
Got to. And we're gonna go hit the Stella, the restaurant over there. We'll get a bite to eat too. So looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, man. Can't wait. Thanks so much, Mark. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, Nuño.
Bye,
guys.
Mark French there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We'll hit a break. Short segment coming back. Right now, we're talking Milliken Reserve. They're a farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces. I say it like that because their mission is, it's to build a healthy community, right? They want people to enjoy nature. They want people to enjoy life outside. They're dedicated to that conservation and that healthy community out there. Respect for that native landscape. 2,600 acres of open space, farms, trails, and homes. They got 30 miles of trails out there, and they connect families to nature and to each other. And they've got an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks, ponds, gathering areas, a place for families to cherish for generation after generation. And you got all the animals you can imagine, all the species, right? You've got the white-tailed deer, the songbirds, the rabbits, the turtles, you name it. They got it all out there. They provide a natural setting for people to connect and come together. You can go hiking, you can go biking, you can go canoeing, you got kayaking. You've got the equestrian trails, you got the evening yoga, you got the summer camps, the music festivals, the farmer markets, and the farm tours, all there at Milliken Reserve. And by the way, the neighborhood is awesome out there. The creek is homes on 10-plus acre wooded estates. You got the hollow, private gated community out there and the meadows, which are responsive to that natural surrounding. It is rooted in Texas soil. If it sounds like a place for you, check out the website, millikenreserve.com. Again, that's millikenreserve.com. The cross-country thing. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We got some updates at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We've got championship stuff coming up, Miss Cavan.
Hey. Yeah, we do have championship stuff coming up.
I didn't phrase it the best way. I apologize. But,
it's okay.
But your response was excellent.
Well, the men's and women's cross-country team is competing in the South Central NCAA Cross-Country Regional. That's a mouthful. On Friday, this Friday in 2 days. The women's start time is going to be 10:30 a.m. Central Time, and the men's start time is 11:30 a.m. Central Time. So it should be an exciting race.
Our Erica Saris, let's go.
Yeah.
Our Pat Henry, the whole team. Like, let's go do it. All right, we'll come back. Hour number 3. Ronnie's in studio next with Recruiting Country. It's TexAgs Radio. Hey, everybody. It's TexAgs Radio. The song's good. You don't have your headphones on.
I never do. I need to come up with a new intro song like I used to, where it's like my music every year.
Every time you come on, it's
right.
this song.
For Recruiting Country. at least. But
You pass that information on, we'll get it to the folks at Brian
yeah, but then that would require me to put in my headphones to listen to the beginning of a segment.
Well, I mean, it'd be like, it's like your entrance music getting into the
I could
octagon.
do like some people do on this radio show and just pull music up on my phone and play it into the microphone.
It's good radio.
It is good, great radio.
Yeah. By the way, it's Recruiting Country, presented by Caprock Health System, a faster, patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area. You got the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. Online, caprockhealthsystem.com. How's recruiting going, buddy?
It's going. It's
Is this still okay? How long
about like you'd think.
How long have you been covering recruiting for A&M?
For TexAgs?
Yeah.
Since 2016?
2016. Is this the most unique season to cover? I mean,
the transition class from Sumlin to Jimbo was crazy because I can remember waking up at my apartment at like 5 a.m. to make phone calls to see where those coaches were going because it was so rushed to try to keep the class together, to go see new kids. It was a conglomeration of coaches, if you'll remember, from kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
So they had ties to different places. There were, people that needed, people from Houston were calling me like, hey, how do I get in touch with Coach Elko? I want him to come see this kid, or this kid's interesting. So that was really, in terms of being the busiest, that transition class was super busy. The 2022 class was a lot of fun. It was busy, but it was a lot of fun. This class has been, what did you call it? Has this been the most what?
I don't even know what I said.
Interesting?
Interesting, just different.
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. And it's weird because there's a certain amount of the current commits that it just feels like they're walking on eggshells talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not their fault. They're 17, 18-year-old kids, and this is kind of a weird situation that they're in. But I will have some notes for the board later today in terms of the visitor list this coming weekend. It sounds like it's going to be pretty good.
Okay.
It's going to be pretty good. Now, I don't know that it's going to be great in terms of uncommitted prospects and targets coming into town, but at this point, David, I think the main goal, and you could put your recruiting lens on and perhaps see it this way as well, the main goal should be keep what you got.
Yep.
And whatever you add on top of that,
great,
is just icing on the cake.
Right? And you mean that from a recruiting class, not portal-ish.
Right. Just recruiting class. Like if you sign all the guys that are committed right now, sure, you'd like to see if you could get Draylon Miller back. What's going to happen with Micah Hudson? But if you told the recruiting staff over there right now that you are going to, no matter what happens on the field the rest of the season, that you're going to sign what you got, I think they'd rip your arm off for it.
Let me ask you this, because you said it matters what it looks like. And I mean, I agree with you, the offense, right? In the losing effort, does it matter what it looks like, since it was a very good second half / end of, like, it was a...
You sound like a guy that read my article yesterday.
Well, I did read it, but I wanted to kind of put it in radio terms.
So what I wrote yesterday was that if you put that game in a vacuum just in and of itself, a 3-point loss to a top 10 team on the road who is a good football team with a really good quarterback and an innovative offense, and you were right there back and forth, had to lead late and missed the field goal to lose the game. In a vacuum, in and of itself, you could say, okay, that was a really good offensive effort. Signs of improvement on that side of the ball without your starting quarterback. And on defense, that's just, they haven't played that bad in a long time since week 2 at Miami. And my lens of looking at that game, I'm going, okay, they weren't great in the secondary, but I also thought that Ole Miss was really good. Like, I thought Jackson Dart made some really good throws.
He did.
They made a bunch of contested catches. So that's just the quarter being flipped, coming up on the wrong side in some of those instances. Not all of them, but some of them. You have to give credit to Ole Miss. So you could say the defense, that's an outlier with how they've played for the majority of the season, correct?
Yeah.
So if it's just a snapshot of that game on Saturday, that is the recruiting pitch, and I would imagine that's what's emanating from the Bright Slocum complex this week is, hey, just look at that game. The problem is we're not doing this in a vacuum. It is a conglomeration of a building resume of falling short. And that is where the snowball has now started to turn into an avalanche on the recruiting front, right? Whereas early on, you've always, really since that 2022 class, people have been poking and prodding at your recruiting any way they can because they didn't like how all that went down. And they didn't like that A&M signed the best class of all time. Since then, you've been really catching arrows from every direction. But now they've got some more qualitative and quantitative evidence to back their negative recruiting pitches. They're really ramping up.
Yeah.
And again, shouldn't surprise anybody. Should not surprise anybody. You can go back and listen to this same segment, I'm sure, from July, August, early September, and this is the exact same thing we were saying. They went on an incredible run in August, one of the best runs that we've ever seen in A&M recruiting history, and under Jimbo as well, as many incredible recruiting runs as he's had. That one in the summer where it was like 16 or 17 commits in a month or whatever, that was crazy. We'd never seen anything like that. But it was always came with a qualifier of, well, they got to win games. This is awesome. This is incredible. Coming off of 5-7, they figured it out on the recruiting front. But at some point, the games have got to be played, and there's going to be recruiting outcomes dictated by the on-field outcomes.
Yeah. Is there any updates on Ty Anthony Smith?
Well, other than he was awesome last Friday night and nearly pulled off an upset against number 2 Silsby and Draylon Miller. Ty Anthony had 13 tackles, I believe 2 tackles for loss, an interception. They've also been putting him in at running back. He carried the ball for like 240-something yards and a couple of touchdowns, and they lost by 1 in overtime. Ty Anthony has been solid in his commitment. Everybody thought he was going to waver whenever Weston Davis and Draylon decommitted. I think Ty Anthony started to look at this he always did. He made his own decision. And talking to some people down there in Southeast Texas, he's been pretty adamant, like, no, I made my own decision. I think the idea, he really, really likes DJ Durkin. The idea of playing next to Torian York, who's a guy that they've grown really close over the course of the last 12 months. He really likes Torian and the way Torian's wired. And you talk to people in Jasper, and they start talking about his maturity, his intellect, his feel for the game, the growth, and just from what he was 24 months ago to now. In terms of his mentality, and it sounds a lot like Torian York.
Yeah.
And maybe he's starting to model some of his on and off the field habits off of Torian. And I think, for A&M fans and the A&M coaching staff, if that is replicated once he gets to campus, I think they'll be more than satisfied with that. So I've heard nothing but good things in terms of where he's at with his commitment. Again, this thing is really fluid right now, though. It's really fluid. I'm going to go see him play tomorrow night in their first playoff game, and I'll talk to him after and just kind of see where the vibe of the whole thing is. But I see him being on the visitor list this weekend, and as of right now, I think things are on solid ground with Ty Anthony.
That's great. We're in a position, though, you're not going to be able to – the season has to play out. And we see it's trending in a certain direction, which is why there's so much panic, but – you still got to see how these next.
There's no way to. I think I even sent. We always discuss some talking points in an email just ahead of time to prep for the show. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen. We just talked about Ty Anthony. We feel good about him. We feel good about where they're at with Miles Davis. I think here break some news on the live radio. I think Terry Bussey's going to come back this weekend, and he's committed. So it shouldn't be breaking news, but because of where everything's at, and because he's getting pushed so hard by other programs. Getting Terry back on campus would be an enormous event for the final push of this recruiting cycle. We think they're in a pretty good spot with Dalen Evans. But there are guys that are going to take visits, but you could have guys go take visits and hate those visits and say, okay, I'm good with A&M. I'm tired of the process. You could have guys that are all in, see something happen on the field or off the field over the next month of these A&M games and say, man, I may need to look around. It is incredibly fluid. Day to day and week to week, which is one of the reasons why you asked if it was the most interesting cycle. I don't know if interesting, it's the most difficult to predict because of how things have gone. This final, what's the date today? November 8th.
November 8th.
So signing days in a month and a week or something like that. So 6 weeks? Let's just say 6 weeks. These final 6 weeks could be really topsy-turvy, or it could be smooth sailing. There's just no way to tell. And there is an inherent quality about recruiting that is like that anyway. But when you've kind of got going on what A&M's got going on right now in year 6 of a coaching tenure, it only amplifies that. And I see people all the time. We talk about some of the kids in the recruiting class, current commits, visiting Florida or visiting Auburn or visiting some of these places that are struggling on the field, like A&M or even worse. And they're like, well, what do you – in Mississippi State's a school that's gotten a visit from Tristan Jernigan. And so people are like, well, we get why A&M's – what the problem is with A&M, but these other programs are struggling too. Well, what's the common denominator about Florida, Auburn, and Mississippi State?
Pretty new regimes.
Yeah, pretty new regimes. So it's a little bit easier to sell that hope and vision that Jimbo was selling in 2018, 2019, right? It becomes a lot easier. So you're right in the fact that the on-field performance is pretty similar or even worse in some of those cases. But it has to do more about the mounting evidence that is being presented against Jimbo Fisher and A&M right now than it has to do with what these other programs are putting on the field. Because, like I said, year 6 compared to year 1 or 2.
Let's talk about some folks that are going to be visiting other places. Cam Coleman going to be visiting Florida State.
It's what it looks like. We anticipate him in Tallahassee this weekend, and he's taken visits to Colorado. He's taken visits to Alabama. He's come to A&M a couple times, which is good.
Yep.
We've long said he's got ties to this area. He's got ties to Greater Houston with his family. So there are some at-home things that keep him coming back to Aggie land, and I think it reinforces when he comes back here why he made his decision. That being said, I think this visit to Tallahassee is definitely one to watch, and I think, with Bama being in state for him, and I know we talked about Phoenix City not being a terribly it's a place where there's a lot of transplants that move in for military purposes in Alabama, so there's not a lot of people necessarily loyal to the state there as much as there are in other parts of the state of Alabama. You still worry about that being close to where he's playing right now and close to where his parents are.
Is he the one who tweeted something this weekend? There was somebody who tweeted, like, here we go again or something like that.
That was Dalen.
Dalen, okay.
Yeah. He deleted it. But, again, don't get wrapped up in emotional 18-year-old tweets.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, we tweet stuff too.
Anyway, for Cam, this trip to Florida State is something that you really need to keep an eye on, as I do think as well with Bama down the stretch because of kind of how Bama season unfolded. And early on, they looked like they were really going to struggle to move the football, and what was the offense going to be without Bryce Young, and then Jalen Milroe was kind of up and down early, and now you watch that game against LSU, and I know LSU's defense has really struggled this year, but you watch Jalen Milroe last Saturday night, and it's just you have to give that Alabama coaching staff a ton of credit. He looks way better. He looked way better at Kyle Field than he did at home against Texas in week 2. Yep. So he's progressively gotten better. They've shown an ability to feature a main receiver in Jermaine Burton and make sure he's like really productive. And that's a guy that kind of couldn't get on there. He's often on the field at Georgia and has come to Bama and has really shined. So there are things that these other programs are not – it's not just arrows against A&M, but they're also selling for themselves. And then Florida State, obviously, with Keon Coleman, and they look like they're in the driver's seat for a playoff run.
Yep. What about Eccles visiting Auburn?
Cohen hasn't told me definitively that he's going to visit Auburn. A couple of weeks ago when he came to the game against South Carolina, he told me that he had talked about it. It wasn't set in stone that he was going to do it, but if he did, it would be for the Iron Bowl game. I tend to believe now that visit will likely happen, but until I hear it from Cohen himself, I won't say it as a fact, right?
Right.
Just some people in Katy tell me, like, yeah, I think he's probably going to end up going to check out Auburn. And Auburn has pushed for him for a long time. Hugh Freeze has made it one of his big priorities. And he's had a great senior season at Katy and has shown some real versatility, not only as a center, but also ability to play guard and tackle. And I think his value for this A&M offensive line class is immense because he is the best center prospect in the state of Texas right now. And you don't want that guy, no matter, especially if you're in need of a center, you don't want the best center in the state going to a division rival.
Jalen Hornsby, the name that I saw attached where he's going to visit, kind of shocked me. Or he did visit. Or
he visited.
He visited Rutgers.
Rutgers.
That's just not a name I typically
hear.
Well,
he's from up there.
Yeah.
Right. And they were actually, it was A&M Penn State. Was it? I can't remember if it was Rutgers or Syracuse, but maybe Rutgers was one of his top 3.
Okay.
This is close to home.
Yeah, I get it.
And I think the staff at Rutgers, from what I understand, Rutgers and Maryland are two programs up there in that part of the country that are trying to keep area talent close to home, because that DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, out to New Jersey, it's kind of been an area that the SEC teams have done a good job of coming in and plucking talent from. And not just SEC, some of the Big Ten power programs, Ohio State, Michigan, have gone in there and done a good job of recruiting that area. So I think there's a bigger push from both of those programs to try to keep talented kids from the area playing at those schools. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Rutgers continue to kind of press on him there.
Jordan Pride to Florida. Is he the one who was a Florida State commit at one point?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he just visited, and I think it was an official visit. I confirmed that. Official visit to Florida last weekend. I do think, and some more news that I was going to put out later, I do think he's coming here this weekend.
Okay.
And it sounds, based off the conversations I've had this morning, things sound pretty good with him.
Okay, good.
They're on pretty good. Again, most of the defensive commitments are in a good spot. You know, you've had Dominic McKinley hasn't taken any visits, but his phone, and Jason talked to somebody really close to the recruitment. The phones have been blowing up, but he hadn't set any visits yet. Gabriel Relaford, LSU, and USC are really pushing after him. He went out to L.A. Recently. Yeah, we know what the situation is with Dalen Evans. Jordan Lockhart on defense hasn't visited anywhere else, supposed to be here this weekend. Tristan Jernigan has visited a lot of other places. You got to watch out for Alabama there. I mean, I think Alabama was kind of always his dream school, and then they offered and they brought him in on a visit, and so we'll see. But for the most part, you feel better about where they're at with the defensive commitments than the offensive ones right now.
Okay. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with some questions for Bronny. I got some other things to get into as well. It is TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Recruiting Country brought to you by Caprock Health System here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. David Nuño, Ryan Brauninger is with us. We're going to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center where we find Kennedy Cavan. We've got some messages on the YouTube page, texags.com, and, of course, the text line. What do you got?
Yes, Matt Tackle said, I'd like to know Bronny's honest opinion of what the path of the program as of today is doing to recruiting. We've seen one flip already. Are more expected?
Yeah, I think that's something that we've kind of hit on quite a bit. It's rocky. One word, I would say rocky, bordering on untenable, if you want a big vocabulary word for the day.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what that means, look it up. Learn something. I've been taking my nootropics.
How do you feel about that?
My brain is firing at a high level.
Can you actually tell a difference?
I can. I really do. Like mental clarity. I'm not stumbling over my words nearly as much. I've talked to you about this. With my jobs, doing what I do here at TexAgs, but also coaching with 12 and the responsibilities I have there, I have a giant Rolodex of names of kids that I've either coaching or covering, people I work with. I'm involved with a lot of people in both of my lines of work. And I had caught myself over the last 4 or 5 months, I would say, really struggling to remember kids' names or specific details. And I'm like, I'm only 37 years old. Like, where's my brain
And people
going?
you should know, right? Like,
well, some of it was like I'm having to dig deep, but I felt like, I hold myself to a little bit of a standard. Like, I should know these things. I shouldn't be getting caught up on whether it be subject-verb agreement in my writing or recalling names of a kid that I'm covering recruiting or having to go coach a high school practice and forgetting a kid's name that has been with our program for a little bit. So there was a lot of stuff like that. And it was bothering me. So I've been doing my research and I found these nootropic pills and no free advertisements. If you want to know what I'm taking now, you can DM me or private message me on the site and I'll be glad to give you the name of the company that I'm using. But I do see a difference.
Let me just take it from an older guy. Not that I'm old per se, but it only gets worse. And it gets worse because your life becomes more cluttered with time. We have a bunch of kids. It gets cluttered. So.
Well, I can only imagine that. That's why I wanted to take preventative measures right now was because I felt like it was going to get worse and you can be proactive about it instead of reactive.
Yep. Yeah, just got to be focused more. We go back to Kennedy Cavan at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
Tony in Lexington, Kentucky said,
Speaking of somebody that could use some help with her mental clarity.
Wow.
That's just rude. Bronny, do recruits ask straight up whether a coach will be there the whole time they are in college, or do they think of it as business with no guarantees?
I mean, I think at this point, there's data that would present that college coaches, the lifespan of a college coach is usually 4 years at the most.
Yep.
I don't know what the number is, but I would guess that an average college coach right now is at a place, if you're at a place for 6 years, you've been there a while. So I don't think that that's a recruiting tactic that should necessarily work. I think they build a relationship with coaches and with the understanding that you never know what's going to happen. It's a revolving door of coaches positionally, with coordinators and head coaches as well. And then there's a revolving door of recruiting staff members and how that goes. So that would not be part of an anti-recruiting pitch, but it is. I should say it wouldn't be part of my anti-recruiting pitch, but it definitely is. I can go back and remember little inside baseball here, how this works. I can remember a certain defensive line coach at one of A&M's recruiting rivals.
Okay.
Whenever the coaching transition happened from Kevin Sumlin to Jimbo Fisher, A&M had a kid, not necessarily a defensive lineman, but a kid that was in the area of Terry Price and this other defensive line coach. This kid signed his NLI with Texas A&M and was still getting recruited by this other defensive line coach. I saw screenshots of the text messages saying A&M is lying to you. They're about to fire Terry Price. Once they do that, you get out of your NIL or your NLI and you come to where I'm at.
Yes.
So it is something. But again, when you are recruiting at this level, it is cutthroat.
Yeah.
So if I see anything in David Nuño's personality or I see anything with that you value that I think I could chip away at slowly but surely, it's all fair game. So whatever I can do to wedge myself in and create a little bit of doubt with you in Texas A&M or you in your favorite school, I'm going to use that. And you kind of got to do it in doses, because if you come on too strong, then it can really turn a kid off.
Backfire, yeah.
Yes. But it
Just
does
enough.
It does work if you just keep picking at that wound. Just keep picking at it and picking at it. It could potentially open the floodgates for you down the road. But
is that taught?
No, I think it's taught through experience.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I don't think people
Out
are
of
inherent.
necessity too.
I think there are good salesmen that are walking around college football that have that trait, that they can find that chink in the armor for a kid. But I do think that there are a lot of lessons learned in recruiting on how it's going to work. And there are guys that will not go after other schools that are fantastic recruiters. They're fantastic recruiters, and they've told themselves, I'm going to sell us, our program, our development, learning under my tutelage as a key selling point, and I will never go after another school. And there are kids that gravitate toward that.
Yeah.
I've been told numerous times, I went and visited A&M, and they never said anything about another school. But when I went to another school, they had a lot of things to say about A&M.
Yep, absolutely. Cavs?
Somebody asked how baseball recruiting is doing.
I think they're going to get some really big news shortly on that front.
Yeah.
One of the better players in the country, I feel like they're about to get an announcement from.
Good.
So, pretty vague there, but I feel good about where they're at. I mean, they got – you want to talk about a well-oiled machine with Nolan Cain running it over there. They've been really good in the baseball recruiting front.
So one of the notes you sent me, they're still in the mix when it comes to Micah. They're still in the mix with Draylon. So just kind of –
Yeah, I think Micah is getting tougher to envision.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that he has been so locked in with Tech, and that staff has done such a good job of building that relationships from the recruiting staff to his position coach to the coordinator to the head coach. They have really had their ducks in a row when it comes to Micah for a long time. I'm not saying that the door is closed at all. I think that you need to get him on campus between now and that early signing period one more time. And he would need to have some real conversations with a lot of folks at A&M for A&M to – and they would have to answer a bunch of his questions for them to get back in it. That being said, I do think he'd be willing to listen. And at this point, that's the least you could ask for if you're A&M. Draylon, look, I said when he decommitted, they didn't want to really do that. And they were almost apologetic in the way that they did it when they told me that what was about to happen. But it's clear that he's trying to give A&M every chance.
Every chance, yep.
He came back for the South Carolina game. It's funny enough, I had somebody in Southeast Texas text me that was at the game, say, hey, Draylon's wearing some A&M stuff tonight against Jasper.
Yeah.
He had some back and forths with Ty Anthony Smith. They're close, right? I think Draylon, if all things were equal, is comfortably coming to Texas A&M. But all things aren't equal right now. And I think wisely he opened it up and didn't make an immediate commitment anywhere else. I think that was a very forward-thinking decision, because he's a kid that's so talented, his spot's not going to go anywhere. If he calls Georgia and says, I want in, Georgia says, you're in.
Right.
If he calls USC, you're in. LSU, you're in. Colorado, most certainly, you're in. And Texas A&M as well. So I think that he's going back through his process, going to see how some things play out before he makes a final decision.
Yep. Any final thoughts, any timelines? What can we expect coverage-wise this week? You have some stuff coming out.
Coverage-wise, playoff start.
Mm-hmm.
We will have our high school football show with our playoff predictions. I may or may not have a local school in the state finals, so you'll have to keep an eye out for that. That'll go out on YouTube. But we will start our playoff coverage, me, Jason, and Cade, tomorrow night. Like I mentioned, I'll be at Jasper against the Columbia Roughnecks. I believe Cade has Sealy versus Silsby. He's mentioned Draylon Miller.
Uh-huh.
And Jason, I always forget where Jason's going in Dallas, but he will be in Dallas in back-to-back nights for playoff games up there. But I'm super pumped. The cool thing about the playoffs is, like my game on Friday, I'm going to see Waco Connolly against Giddings. They're playing at Bryan.
Okay.
Because there's so many Houston versus Austin, Houston versus Dallas matchups in the playoffs, when they start and they do these neutral site games, Bryan College Station right in the middle. So I do less traveling in the playoffs. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
Thank you, Bronny.
Yeah, thank you.
When we come back, Peter Burns next on TexAgs Radio. All right, our next guest, kind of like Jordan Pugh, keeps it real. He just tells you what he thinks, and he's like, I would be thinking this. Peter Burns, brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans from the SEC Network, joins us every Wednesday during football season. PB, what up, man?
Just living and licking my wounds after being an LSU fan, thinking that they actually had a chance for the first three quarters against Alabama. I mean, it was okay for a while, I guess, and now I'm trying to figure out if I should freak out against Florida this weekend. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, we can start with LSU for a minute because, and actually I'm not going to start with Alabama in this equation here. Man, that program, they just figure it out, don't they? Like they're not the same team that started the year. And a lot of teams you can say that about, but they're just a different level when it comes to that.
Well, the best thing that happened to them was benching Jalen Milroe in week 2. You know, when Nick told them, hey, we're going to give these other guys a shot, and they benched them, and the other two quarterbacks didn't work out well, in hindsight, thank God that they didn't. Because, you know, what it did was it forced Alabama to go to Jalen Milroe 100%, and it forced Tommy Rees to call an offense that was based on Jalen Milroe's skill set. So I think that's honestly the biggest break that Alabama had because, I think they're a dangerous team right now that, I could foresee them doing, winning out and including winning the SEC championship game. And I don't think that happens if they play Tyler Buchner against South Florida and he has a good game and then they're kind of in flux about what quarterback they're going to use the remaining part of the year. Like them being horrible against South Florida may have saved their entire season.
Talking to Peter Burns here at TexAgs Radio. So how do LSU fans look at this season, considering still it could be a very nice season, but maybe not the season everybody expected in what was supposed to be a down SEC West year, but it is only year 2 of Brian Kelly. Where we stand right now, how do the fans look at it?
Well, it's incomplete because I think they knew that this wasn't going to be a great season, especially after the FSU start. But, I mean, they don't believe that they should lose against Florida. And really what it comes down to is the A&M game, right? Like, I mean, that is still a situation that just rubbed every LSU fan wrong the last year when A&M won that game because, it completely just deflated LSU's, fan base going into Atlanta. Like, I remember being in Atlanta saying, all right, well, LSU's here in the SEC championship game, and nobody cares, right? Because they knew that A&M had ruined any chance that they had of an outside chance of making to the college football playoff. So I think it's still an incomplete for LSU fans. If they go ahead and beat Florida this weekend and they beat A&M, then you're going to look at it going, man, it stinks, but hey, we've had 2 back-to-back seasons, and at least we're not Texas A&M where we're 8-4 or 7-5 each and every year. I don't mean that to be mean. I just mean like that's how LSU fans are going to view it right now.
Well, what if LSU is 8-4 then, and under that scenario, they're the ones that become 8-4?
Yeah, I mean, then you look at it going, all right, well, what does this look like? You just had one of the most historic offenses in the history of not just LSU football, but SEC history, and LSU's defense couldn't show up. Like, Brian Kelly has to get that right. But again, I think you've seen as far as the overall program and behind-the-scenes stuff, there is a foundation being built that is going to make it consistent. The problem is they need to figure out what's going on defensively. And I don't know if that's making defensive coordinator changes. I mean, listen, they thought Denver Harris was going to work out. He didn't. They end up having Greg Brooks, who ends up having, my goodness, brain cancer. I mean, it's just everything on that defensive side of the ball that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for LSU. And now, I mean, it's up to Brian Kelly. If you're going to get paid $10 million a year, you need to, finish strong when you're not in college football playoff contention. And it only becomes an issue that they're upset after next year when it becomes a 12-team playoff. Like, LSU should be one of those teams that's in contention every single year for a 12-team playoff. And if they don't, then that's when the fan base is going to get really, really pissed off.
Talking to Peter Burns here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. So, been different opinions on A&M's performance against Ole Miss, and I'd like to see where you stand on it. Valiant effort, gutsy. They came back. Max Johnson took some shots. They were right there. Could have gotten blown out. There's that. Sure, all true. And then there's, but they lose games at the end all the time. They've lost 9 straight on the road and yada, yada, yada. Where are you when it comes to A&M, considering how they played, but the way they've played over the last 2+ seasons?
I mean, both can be true, right? I mean, both can be true in the fact of, hey, listen, I mean, that's a tough place to play. The crowd, I didn't think the crowd was going to bring it. They did. I think Ole Miss is a damn good team that has a chance to upset Georgia this weekend. I think that's a legitimate chance of happening. And at the same point, I'm like, I keep looking at it going, why does Max Johnson look like he's backpedaling on every single throw he makes? And why can't they get this figured out? Why do they have these great athletes and they don't use the space and utilize the space? They seem to bunch everybody in. There's all these question marks about A&M, and you look at it and go, they look the part. Like, what just doesn't work here? And I don't know that answer. I mean, and I don't know if Jimbo knows that answer. And again, part of it is the difference between, each and every week, I think we see the difference between what Connor Wegman could bring as QB1 and Max Johnson. It's just, everything looks just a touch slower when he's in there, and it feels like it's a Herculean effort to make things happen. And so That's going to be on Jimbo, man. I mean, that at some point when you get paid that amount of money, you have to figure out what here in this equation is not working, because right now it's not.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think isn't working. It's the offensive line, right? That line is, even though they will look much better in the second half against Ole Miss, but you've gotten too many quarterbacks hurt. And I used to make myself feel better saying, well, what would Alabama do if they're on their number 2? What would LSU do if they're on their number 2? And while all that may be true, it doesn't matter. This is year 3 of getting down to your backup, third string, yada, yada, yada.
Well, and I think a lot of that as well, too, is I'd like to see, and again, this is, and it's up to, this is going to be Petrino's offense and what they do is, you can't build, it feels like the last couple of years why we like Jimbo Fisher right off the bat, other than Kevin Sumlin, was like, hey, all right, the lines of scrimmage are going to be really good. And while the defensive line has been really good, the offensive line, whether it be through injuries or just bad luck and missing on recruits, hasn't been that dominant. And we kind of wondered, all right, how do you get better at that? And I don't know. You would say it's the transfer portal, but it's not as if A&M's whiffing on guys that way. You would say it's recruiting. Well, it's not like guys are whiffing that way, and not grabbing the right recruits. I don't. I mean, every single time I talk to a coach outside of, in our studio, one of the common things that we talk about is we can't figure out how A&M hasn't figured it out yet. Like, they're puzzled. And actually, they're happy that A&M hasn't figured it out, because they truly believe that A&M is this crown jewel that if all of a sudden when things get rolling, why can't they be the next Georgia? Why can't they be the next Alabama? You have the facilities, you have the fan base, you have the recruiting rankings. Like, why aren't they at that same level that year in and year out, you're like, worst case scenario, it's a 10-win season. We can't say that right now outside of just maybe bad luck on injuries, and I don't think that's all it.
I think a lot of fans, and even myself, I chuckle a little bit when I say, all right, what if they went out? So, but Peter, I'll ask you, like, if they win out, that includes winning in Baton Rouge, a place that they haven't won since the mid-'90s. That means, when it comes to the luster of next season, I still think it's going to be like, I don't know. This A&M, they underperform. Certainly going to feel much better than what most people expect is 7-5.
If you at least win out, then you can say, am I building some momentum that's not going to hurt me come college football recruiting and coming into the transfer portal, right? I mean, that's the beauty of this aspect of it, is that you need to have that. That's why the win against LSU last year was so big. It's like, this year sucked, but at least we have that. Like, what is that win that A&M is going to have on their roster? Because it feels like each year, whether it be Alabama in years prior or if it was LSU, while the entire season in its totality was a disappointment, at least you had that one win. You'll be like, we did win that game. That was awesome. And I think you need to have that if you're Jimbo, because you need to light a fire. At some point, Kirby Smart lit a fire under that program at Georgia that was, underperforming with Mark Richt, and said, no, like, we're taking this thing to the next level. And that just has not sparked yet outside of a 2020 weird year during the pandemic.
Well, I expect Alabama to win comfortably against Kentucky this weekend. Does Kentucky have that defense to at least make life hard for Jalen Milroe?
I'll tell you this. I talked to some people in Alabama this week, and normally I could get a pretty good vibe of how that team's feeling. I think they're emotionally tired. I think this game ends up being a little bit closer than a lot of people are going to give it credit for. And even odds makers, I think, are starting to pick up on that. The fact that this feels like it should be like Alabama, 17-point favorite, and the line is only 10, tells you a little bit of something. And I don't know if that's just because, hey, Alabama doesn't look at Kentucky as a normal rival, and it's on the road, and you're coming off an LSU game that's really emotionally taxing. I don't know. I think that game ends up being closer than expected up there in Lexington.
Peter, you are what your record says, and Ole Miss finds ways to win games. Do they have enough to make it interesting this weekend against Georgia?
I think they do, because, you go back and look at teams that have beaten like highly ranked Alabama teams or highly ranked Georgia teams. Rarely have people beaten Georgia. When you do that, you have to have a quarterback that has the swagger, whether it's Johnny Manziel or whether it was Joe Burrow. Jackson Dart has that. Like, Jackson Dart's not afraid of this Georgia team. And in fact, they almost kind of they're cherishing this moment that they have that opportunity. I think it always takes the guy that you're just like, all right, I'm not backing down for something. And just the way Jackson had those comments after the A&M loss, like you can tell he's got a little bit of the dog in him. And I think that Ole Miss has an opportunity to win that game. I haven't made the prediction yet over on when we do our show on Friday. But damn, it's going to be tough for me not to think that Ole Miss can pull this thing off, because that's what back-to-back weeks that Georgia has been tested. And then remember, next week for Georgia, they got to go on the road to Tennessee up in Neyland, and that Tennessee team is starting to play really, really good football as well.
So let's play out that scenario. What if Ole Miss beats Georgia? Now, how do we figure out who makes the playoffs? And I mean, considering they're able to finish out, like Alabama beat them. Alabama lost to Texas. You got all these one-loss teams. Texas is winning even with their backup quarterback. Like, then what?
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is that Ole Miss puts himself in a really interesting position because they could beat Georgia this week, go 11-1, but not qualify for the SEC championship game, which in a weird way would almost be good for them if all of a sudden a Texas loses and an FSU, like Florida State has no strength of schedule whatsoever. And so if Florida State loses a game, and which could happen, and Texas loses a game, which definitely could happen, all of a sudden, Ole Miss could sit there being 11-1, not playing the SEC championship game, and make it as the second SEC squad that comes in. So it's and then we got to wonder what's going to happen with Michigan, if anything happens with Michigan, with the whole sign stealing thing, and if whether or not the Big Ten comes in there and suspends Harbaugh, how that's going to affect Michigan. So it's chaotic here these last 3 weeks, and the fact that there's still 8-9 teams that can win it, I think it's damn good, way to showcase what a 12-team playoff's going to look like next year.
Peter, let's close out with Tennessee and Missouri. I'm super intrigued by this game. While I think Missouri's the better team, I guess it depends on what Tennessee team shows up.
Yeah, I actually think I actually like Tennessee in this game, and I know that it's in Columbia. But for me, I think the emotions of back-to-back years where Missouri could have won that game against Georgia and couldn't get it done, I think it's taxing. And I think everything was put into that game. And for Tennessee, they've just been kind of chugging along. And I'm really impressed with Heupel and the fact of they're not winning it in one way, which is last year, how they would pass the ball really well. Now that they're really complimentary, and they're actually playing better defense and they run the ball extremely well. So I think they actually out-Mizzou Missouri this week over in Como and actually win that game, which would set up another monster game between Tennessee and Georgia the following week.
That is Peter Burns from the SEC Network, always doing good work, sir. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week.
Gig 'em. See you, bud.
Gig 'em, buddy. Peter Burns. Love his analysis here on the program. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with some final thoughts and set up tomorrow's show. Right now, if you're thinking about moving to the Brazos Valley, you better do it soon, guys. This place is blowing up. It's awesome. It really is. I moved here a couple years ago, and it took the right opportunity for me, and there might be that right opportunity for you through the Association of Former Students who are looking to hire professionals, right? If you want to get back to this area, check it out. I mean, they've got positions available there. You can look in communications, fundraising, former student programs, campus programs, and much, much more. You know all about them. I've talked about them for years here on the program. They're the nation's premier alumni association and the oldest organization serving that A&M Aggie network. The association plays a huge part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. Don't miss the opportunity to help the association with Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies the Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. So if you're interested in joining the team or sharing with somebody that would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. Final segment of the program, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Nick Savage. Remind me of the 4 teams in the college football playoffs right now, if it were to end today.
Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State. No change in the top 4 in the second edition of the playoff ranking this week, but a little shakeup in the bottom portion of it.
So here's an interesting thing. We'll see how things play out for Michigan in the sign-stealing scandal. Michigan plays Penn State this weekend. They eventually play Ohio State. What happens to one of those teams if they get a loss, right? That shakes it up quite a bit with Oregon, Texas, and Alabama over there trying to get into that spot. Washington, obviously having a phenomenal run, undefeated. If they can beat Utah this upcoming weekend, do they slide in there? Penn State's still trying to be that team that finds a way in, but they just knock on the door and then they just close the door. It's just how it's gone for them. You were going to say, Nick?
Just a couple teams looking at this that you at least go back to the start of the season, you'd be like, how in the heck are they in the rankings now? Oklahoma State, one of them, right? They lost to South Alabama earlier on in the year, and then Arizona. I mean, where did they come from?
Well, here's the thing. Arizona's a great example. On Oklahoma State, I just read a projection that had A&M playing Oklahoma State in the Texas Bowl, right? And they're a team that had that early season loss, and they found a way afterwards. They did not crumble. They had an embarrassing loss, and they got their biggest win in years just this past weekend. So congratulations to Oklahoma State for that. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Wednesday. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to have our good friends, the Fan Show people. They'll be on there. Not Ryan McGee. We'll have Stephen McGee and Ryan Swope on the program. AT, and, of course, Olin Buchanan. My thanks to Nick Savage. Yeah, he can hit a jump shot. I'm sure he can. Kennedy Cavan, she says she doesn't say certain words. I heard her say a word today. There's that, and there's more. Great staff over there at Bryan Broadcasting. That's going to do it for TexAgs Radio. On a Wednesday, we'll see you mañana.